Right, here we are coming up on the 3 p.m. turn of Wellington's victory. The first of the Prussians will be arriving from over there. What's happened so far? Well, the French got tied down, obviously, in the Hougoumont. Allied forces, especially with a heavy cav, have disrupted the French to the left of the Hougoumont, while on the other hand, to the right of it, directly to the right, the French have been quite effective and have begun taking the ridgeline. Elsewhere, we can see that the French have stretched out quite a bit of line along the ridges and are pretty much being held from any great gains. Napoleon has sent elements of the 1st and 6th Corps heading off to deal with the Prussians as they come in. Another little cav fight over here on this wing here. Now this wing over here, the French are doing incredibly well on. They've taken La Hassant, and they're basically in a position to start flanking the Allied army, and there's really nothing to be thrown in anymore. The Landwehr that were back there in reserve have already been thrown into the fight. For what that's worth, some of them are routing back there. But yeah, the French right flank is doing quite well, whereas the French left is not quite collapsing to the same level, but not in great shape. The fight here, you know, the way this game is designed, it is not really viable to take unless the Allies choose not to throw a bunch of skirmishers in there. It's just this massive skirmisher duel going on, and it's a very slow battle of attrition is all that it works out to be. Doesn't feel anything like, you know, the dramatic storming with the Imperial Guard trying to throw themselves in and getting repulsed or anything along those lines. And in fact, the Guard can't fight at the Hougoumont for whatever that's worth, with the optional rules. Without the optional rules, you can break them down into skirmishers and they can fight too. Right now, point-wise, gotta check my camera. The Allied army is down to 84 points. The French are at 158, with a lot of units committed on both sides, over 20 units committed on both sides. That's going to be taken off right off the bat. So that 84 is going to drop down to 64, 61 this turn. And I'm going to have to start counting routed units because I do not have routed units tracked in there. And I suspect there's about 30 points of Allied routed units on the board right now, which means we're pretty damn close to breaking the Anglo-Allied army, but now the Prussians come. If we can hold off a little bit, break that Anglo-Allied army, it'll be essentially forced to withdraw. Otherwise, it costs them victory points basically for each turn that they're on the board, if I recall correctly. So they basically have to withdraw and deactivate their units once they're off the map, which will, of course, remove the cost from here. Otherwise, they're gonna take regular penalties to the overall victory points. As long as they're on the map, even if they're, you know, not in any danger or anything, they will cost victory points at that point. But the Prussian army comes on with some 300 morale, which obviously the French aren't going to be able to break that. But can they set themselves up in such a way that they don't get defeated by Blucher? Well, we'll see. Here it is, Wednesday, another rainy day. It's raining all week. And I'm pretty close to out of food, but you know, what I call that, which means I no longer have, you know, sandwich stuff. But I should be able to make it through to next week because I'm still sick and no way I want to pull the cart through the rain in this condition. I could always go nearby. Anyway, first time yet since I got sick that I'm actually excited to come up here. Like, in the sense of I didn't have to force myself. It felt like, oh, I should just do that, you know? And I don't want to sit in front of the computer or anything. So there's that. That's a good sign. We're at the top of a new turn. The Prussians are coming. The Prussians are coming. And I guess we're going to get started. I have to look up rules on, you know, how they enter and when and whatnot. Which I'll get to in a moment. But one thing I noticed yesterday was when I walked, I was getting pain in my jaw, actually right about the place where I've got like a tooth that's falling apart. The only one that's actually broken, and it did so, I don't know, some time ago, over a year probably. But I don't know, it's like every time I take a heavy step, it was kind of, I would feel something there. I wouldn't call it pain. I don't generally get pain in my mouth. I do when, you know, when they're working on my teeth. But, that has gone away, but a collateral effect or an effect that it requires less sensitivity is still there, which is if I slap myself backside of the head, I can still feel it. Now, I don't know, you know, what I suspect is either it's a sinus issue or there's an infection now, one or the other. But either way, it's getting better, so no need to worry. That's what almost took me out in Phoenix, was infection. But unfortunately, I went to the emergency room, and they gave me something that I think made it worse. So, like penicillin or something. Anyway, let's get started. The Prussians don't start coming in until the Anglo-Allied command phase, which is halfway through the turn. Combat and command units attached to Prussian 2nd and 4th Corps can begin deploying on map B. Some rules here. Prussian units are in command and control of the turn. They enter. Yeah, good luck keeping them that way. And then I get another corps coming on turn 34. This is turn 24. I was wrong about how many points of morale they have. They have 125. I thought they had like 300 like the other armies did. So one thing we will have to do is we will have to count the routed units and see what that status is like. I might try to keep a point total of that. But none of that matters until I hit the Allied command phase. So, the French get to dispatch some units. The worst turn of all to do this in, so we shall not be doing that, but we may make some charge. First cav decision I make is over here. I'm definitely going to make this charge. I can hit this unit in the rear, perfect. This guy's disordered, so he can't, but I'm going to make a charge with this guy. Now that's going to disorder him coming through there, but how big am I? See, I'm hitting him in the rear, so he'll disorder as well. No, I can't do it. So this is the only one in a charge zone. And this guy will be undisordered. This guy was hoping to protect his back, but he's not doing it. He's only protecting out to here, so yeah, we're going to get an unimpeded attack. Now, we may, depending if we face this way before we charge, Facing change causes a disorder. If we did do a facing change and a disorder on this, we would be able to hit this and then follow through into that. I don't think it's necessary. I think we've got the edge right now and are just fine. Keeping a unit unallocated is okay. Let me check down on that side now. I think the French have the numerical advantage in Cav down here as well. A bunch of them are disordered, but because I have the numerical advantage, I'm launching 2 charges from the couple of units that aren't disordered. That will cause some morale checks, of course, everywhere down here. But this is going to be kind of a tough nut to crack, but once I hit that, then I can get an attack on the flank of this. So it seems like an okay idea. He is up a level, which means the flank attack's not quite as useful. But that's okay. Plus, I don't actually have to make that second attack, or I can make 2 attacks on this if the first one fails. Well, I'll be forced to. But it's mainly, you know, forcing some morale checks and whatnot. And now it's just rally time. I'm already exhausted, so I don't expect to be able to do too much. But unlike before, I didn't feel like I had to drag my ass up here. I felt like I wanted to get away from the computer. I wanted to get away from being in my little hole all the time. Even the mechanical action of picking the disordered and routed markers off is fatiguing enough. It's the concentration, concentrating just, I'm not feeling feverish or anything, but I start feeling like I've exerted myself physically, actually, a little bit. And, you know, I'm not in good shape right now, really bad shape because of the illness. I also remembered to drop the 24 points off, so we're now at 134. All right, time for break. And honestly, I think I'm going to go back to sleep. I'm thinking about it. I got like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I could use more. It's nighttime now, obviously. I don't know how late. It's got to be getting close to midnight. Feeling worse again. Probably was awake too long now, although I've only been awake since 6 p.m. I went back to sleep as I threatened, and so actually I've gotten a decent amount of sleep, but yeah, it doesn't feel too good. On the bright side, and among other things, before I get to the bright side, the pain in my upper jaw is back to the point where if I step hard, I feel it, and very clearly it's related to some kind of pressure from above. But on the bright side, other than like, hey, maybe I might still die soon, which feeling well kind of convinced me, almost certainly not going to. My nose and taste buds had improved. I think they're getting worse again. But a couple hours ago or so, I made myself a really nice little dinner. I usually eat crap, right? I mean, and while I was sick, I couldn't taste much of anything. So I was eating crappier crap than, a lot of sauerkraut though. But I was going to make one of my sort of standard things, which is just like, you know, spaghetti, some sauce, some meatballs, whatever, all prepackaged stuff. I don't make my own sauces anymore or anything. And instead, I realized, whoa, I have like this blue cheese stuff, and that sounded really good, like the idea of that. I often make, you know, use Parmesan or something like that. So I did spinach and onion sauteed with some blue cheese. Anyway, it was really good, but I don't think I could taste it properly now. I was actually beginning to lose my taste again. We're on the Allied movement. I have to worry about the checks for the charge zones as well. Speaking the things aloud, it kind of helps remind me of where I'm at and everything. Probably is less important to you as a viewer, but to me, it is of some use, I think. Oddity I want to point out, this guy was on top of this unit over here. He couldn't command these. Okay, fine. Those are healthy and ready to go, but I can dispatch the disordered units forward, but then I had to run back to go rally some more units. Eventually, I'll be able to pump all of these up there a little at a time, conceivably, but it's not really a pleasant thing. Movement actually felt remarkably easy for whatever reason. Is it because I'm not doing something I should be? Yeah, there's a couple of things that I still have left to do, but including getting Wellington back so you can activate those Brunswickers. But for the most part, there aren't a lot of units. I don't have a lot I can do. I'm kind of stuck in fights, and the Prussians don't come in this turn. They are activated during the command phase and added in, and don't actually come in until next turn, if I recall correctly from what I read. I don't feel like looking it up again. I'm going to have to look it up like 4 times this turn if that's the case. Yeah. And I guess that's about it. I'll have to get to the French melees, which we definitely will have some because I created some charge zones. Oh, I screwed up. So all this stuff was activated already, and it wasn't just last time I had a chance. I don't know. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Anyway, it didn't get moving. Pausing in the midst of a rather unlikely but complex series of events that have happened in the cav charges over on this side. So the first cav unit hit this grant here and was defeated and ran away. Fine. He has to plow forward now and go into the next cav unit. That cav unit countercharged on the 50% table, but at 0, he got a result D1, DR1, which means both lost a casualty, but he's won the battle. He's fleeing, but he has to flee in an ugly situation. He has to get away from that hex, and pretty much anywhere where he goes, he's going to trigger minimum range cav zones and possible countercharges. So he's going to get kind of hammered for being in the midst of the cavalry swirl. After a couple more cav hits, we're left with this unit up in front. Everything else is cleared out on both sides. A couple of routes against the French. They came out the worst out of that exchange by far. I think they lost like 4 extra strength points or something, somewhere in that range. It involved some high-end rolls in the sense that I got a couple of these 6s, D1, DR1s, to impact things. So like the disordered unit had to continue plowing into the next, a fresh British unit, which itself got to countercharge to counter the effects, and just it ended up being a pretty ugly situation. Now we go over there and see what happens with the French are in a much better position on that side. Here they're outnumbered by the cav, and that's part of the problem, but I thought that one unit was really screwed. It's not in that bad a shape. It had a follow-up unit to protect it, which, these units don't have charge zones on the board, so it kind of doesn't feel like they're going to be charging, but the opportunity charge allows them to sort of trump in. So really interesting interplay there with several different cav charging off of just 2 charge zones that were overlapping. Can't be right. I don't know what the hell's going on here. I've got like a charge zone here, which however I try to manipulate it, I can't see. This unit couldn't be doing it. This unit couldn't be doing it. This unit, which I think is the one I meant to have the charge zone, but I think I like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, are there other charge spaces? So this unit would be hitting here. This unit I wouldn't have wanted to hit. So I think what I missed doing was this should have been out 1, 2, 3 more out there. So I'm hitting in the rear, but this guy's protecting it. Let's see what that's going to be like. 1, 2. I can't go this way. Well, I could avoid the charge, or I could, so I can avoid the counter charge by coming here. 3. Oh no, that's going to cause it. 1, 2. Yeah, let's just go straight in. That gives him a shot to charge. Anything but a 6, he gets his charge. Woo! Sweet. Okay, so we do get to slam with this one. That ended up being fairly fortuitous. I hit that, got a victory out of it. Not a good one. I had a lot of advantages. I was up on the +3 chart or whatever at 100%, but I got the DR1, D1 instead of things that would have just routed it, right? Because it's already disordered. It routes, but I take a hit, which I wouldn't have otherwise, but that dislodged the Brits into this thing's range. It succeeded in making its charge check and slammed into a routing unit, which just does 2 hits, which finished the unit off. Now I look and see if there's anything for the infantry to launch a melee on. I doubt it, but it's possible. We hit the flank of some landwehr here. That seemed worthwhile, and it worked out as such, routing them, causing a couple more losses, sending them flying. Now, the next place where there was some interest is here. I have a flank attack, but there's some artillery that unlimbered on me. Is it out of ammo? No, it is not. So I would have to take an artillery shot to attack from there. Now, I could attack here, but my odds aren't very good. So again, I'll leave that up to the firepower situation. Unfortunately, I'm going to take this artillery hit no matter what, but I don't see the point of giving him that shot and then another one at my skirmisher or whatever by launching a melee attack. Let me keep looking. A small stack of skirmishers that's in this hex. There's no protection there. I've got like 7 skirmishers going against 4. Let's look at this. This might be one of a few valid places where skirmishers get to attack skirmishers. 7 to 4 means I'm going to be only at 150%, which isn't all that great. But let's look at the fire table first. 4 skirmishers does not get me to the bonus line, so it would be here against, actually I'm hitting soft cover because I'm coming out of the brambles, so he only has a 1 in 6 chance of hitting me. This seems worth it. Let's play this out on video for whatever reason. Well, we get the hit. But I'll put that there for now. My morale check, I basically can't fail. Because again, I have the soft cover protecting me as I come out. So now I'm 6 to 4. That's going to put me at 150%. We're on the 0 table. No biggie. And we'll see what happens. We're trying to speed things up. We get a DR, that's going to route the entire stack. A rout in a melee situation means 2 hits on them. So actually, this sort of situation where you can get a bigger pile of skirmishers against a weaker one is actually quite impressive. And now, these skirmishers are going to have to retreat, and they're going to generate fire on the way out. And we managed to get a lucky or unlucky shot here, getting an ammo depletion on ourselves, but killed yet another one of them. So there's 1 routing skirmisher coming out of there. And we're actually getting into a position where the firepower attrition might actually get us the Huguenot if we're lucky. And that's 15 morale points for us, which is good, because again, we're currently right about the level the Prussians are going to be, minus any routed units we have, which aren't a lot. But on top of that, it's 15 more off the Allies, which might have actually sunk them if it happened, you know, right now. It's not going to happen right away, but we're in a position where it is actually getting awfully close. So a lot of complexity going on this turn. As we go to the artillery phase, I'm not capable of doing that right away. I feel okay, actually, comparatively, but I'm feeling a little bit of dizziness already. I'd like to do all the fire at once if I can. But yeah, we saw some interesting breakthroughs. This part, the Allies got the French cav to collapse even more. Over here, the French managed to get the Allied cav to collapse. Over here, we got a little bit of a breakthrough on Huguenot. And then over here, we managed to continue on our flanking situation, where that Allied line looks really iffy. Now, again, those are Hanoverian troops there. I can tell by their quality. But these are Brits, and they are part of the same unit, I think. No, this is 4-5, this is 9-5. Yeah, that would be really weird, because if they have the same designation, they're like part of the brigade. Part of the same brigade, or part of the same demi-brigade, I guess. I don't know. This looks like a mixed brigade. 5 is going to be the division. So, yeah, this would be at the brigade level. And you wouldn't expect a multinational brigade. Those got to be pretty rare. All right. Okay, let's make some things go boom. French get first choice of shot. I don't know where I'm going to take it from. I don't know if it even matters. So the French don't have a lot of guns that are able to really hit. They got one over here. This doesn't count. I marked this one. That's a shot. I think I'm going to start over here, but I'm basically going to get 2 shots with the French. The Allies have a few more, and I think they have a few more in either direction. So whichever way I go, I'm not going to get caught up to. So the French are going to have the advantage by having less firepower, which is okay. I don't mind that at all. That means, you know, usually there's a long line and a fair amount of shots in each direction, and it's like, well, where do I get the tiny edge? Or am I just trumped no matter which direction I go from, because the enemy's... That would mean the enemy's sparser on both flanks, which, again, I kind of don't mind if you get the edge, because you're the weaker power at that point. Initial French shot was relatively effective. It was the last shot. That's an ammo depleted unit. It'll be getting out of the line too. I got more coming. But blew a hole in the line, knocking a couple of units back, you know, adjacencies and whatnot. And yeah, I don't see any way that I can prevent that shot from taking place. I might be able to prevent one over here, so we'll go over to that side. Indeed I was able to take out that gun crew before they got their shot. Would I have been... Yeah, there aren't any English guns until about where the hole happened. But see, what would have not been able to happen, I think I would not have been able to hit this gun, because there's units blocking me. I have to shoot at the closest units anyway, even if it wasn't blocking. So yeah, I screwed up with the French. But anyway, we got a few more guns for the Allies to fire. Mattered anyway, this thing has an ammo depletion marker under it. So now infantry fire. And the French get first shot again. Over here, I don't really bypass. It's an immediate challenge, but I've got sparser troops. That's appealing. Over here, I think I got more density. So as sort of a quick, because you could count the shit out of this stuff and work it all out and everything. It just doesn't seem that worth it. Again, it's going to be this narrow band where you've got an advantage, where you might get a few shots off where the other guy doesn't, unless you get chased, right? But it just ends up weird because on one flank you have the advantage, on the other flank the other guy has the advantage. But you will tend, and this I kind of like, you will tend to get the better advantage by going to a flank where you're sparser, which means that you'll, oh, there's this though, oh man. Because it actually does make a big difference, right? Like, if I take a lot of disorders from British fire before I hit here, that's kind of problematic. So I do kind of have to look. I feel like I'm kind of sparse over here too. I'm going to go on this side simply because the Huguenot problem, I have so many more shots there, and most of them are garbage. Now, the only danger is, will I lose the race here? And I don't think I will, because there's a higher density of British troops, which means they'll go over to this side, and then we meet somewhere in the middle. And they actually get less shots out of the Huguenot. But it kind of works out weird because I'm going to be going with my stronger side. That wouldn't normally be the case. It's only because of this fuck up here. So sure, French fired here. Their next shot will be over here. The Brits could get the jump on them with a couple of shots, but then we could be alternating. I'll get through this quicker as the Brits. I'm going to go over on this side. Again, weird shit, you know. Right now I start over here. If I want to take it, I could choose not to take that 1 and 6. That seems silly. Show, yeah, the Brits started out a little behind, but now they've caught up and surpassed. We're going to be alternating, I think, with this. Are we? Density looks pretty heavy for the French. Yeah, I think the French screwed up. I think they would have been better off there. But it's, yeah, because if I'm constantly behind, I lose every race. Whereas here, I would have gained some of these races down here. Be careful. You see, I got disappointed here. This guy's not going to have a shot because the hill's in his way. He's on the reverse slope. One of the important shots came over here, this disordered unit. I'm rolling, there's enough hill going up that he wouldn't be penalized. And that would fit with either interpretation, to be honest. Managed to hit the one strength point disordered unit that had flanking fire here. That might have been the major difference between what we're seeing. Although we're also seeing units get around. Certainly it was bad for the French to go where they did. They ended up not getting, they're following fire everywhere. But this was a key location. I don't think I would have made it through here, though, for that particularly important shot. Managed to clear a pesky skirmisher down here. Took a lot of shots, but it's taken up a lot more over time. And now I've got humongous firepower. I finally managed to clear it out of the way, which is a big deal because that'll allow me to bring these forces forward and take advantage of, well, you know, I got kind of knocked back too, though. You can see I got routed. I got a unit disintegrated, maybe 2 units disintegrated. I don't know. Because I think there were a couple. I think there was one here. I don't remember. This was the guy who had the flanking. I think there was something here, though, that got shot as well. You know, there was a skirmisher there that got killed, yeah. Somewhere around here. And now we're going through the cluster, but again, the Brits are way ahead at this point. Nothing else much that's too dramatic here. Just some fire that didn't do much. You know, a little bit hits here and there. Point totals right now. I'll come back after I count the route total. I do not see that it's going to be 60, but so the Brits are at 61, French are at 113. The French took their hits already. The Brits have not taken theirs. That's why it's only a 50-point swing instead of the 70-point swing. If we subtract that extra 23, we're looking at a little over 70 now. But if there are 61 routed Allied units out there, then I got to do a rolls lookup. I don't think there are that many points, though, that are routed. They've started collecting up their routes, or one of them ran off the board already and already fully counted. Now it got me to 35. And, you know, I think we're doing about 20 hits a turn, honestly. But anyway, even if Huguenot had fallen, we wouldn't have broken them. Are the Prussians getting here, you know, in enough numbers soon enough that they can prevent that break? I don't know. This is certainly, from my guess, it looks like the Allies are doing worse than they did historically in a lot of ways. But Huguenot has not fallen, you know. Other than this flanking here, I don't feel like the French have really gotten a huge breakthrough. Where they seem to be getting one here, they got flung back a little bit. Now there's another little one there. Who knows? You know, it's not all shit. There's some decent units in there. In fact, mostly it's decent units. I don't know how good it feels that, like, units are able to... that shit units being destroyed counts the same as good units being destroyed. One thing I want to reflect on, I may have mentioned this earlier, I don't know. I don't know if I've said this particular, but overall, I'm finding this cumbersome, there's no question, but nowhere near, like maybe half as cumbersome as Summer Storm was. Which means a lot less mistakes being made, a lot less feeling that, like, I have to constantly be looking up rules to see, wait, how does that happen? What's going on there? I don't have to constantly look up on a chart to see. Yes, I have to look up on the fire chart regularly, but I have to look on the CRT in Summer Storm as well, right? What I don't have to do, even though these combat charts are a little more complicated than usual, what I don't have to do is run through this whole long list of modifiers that the odds-based CRT kind of forced me into. There's a fairly limited number. I feel like I can keep them in mind. I might be forgetting some, but I don't feel like I'm overburdened by the amount that there are. Right? So I don't have to constantly look shit up. I don't have to constantly be paying attention to what's going on. That's going to get me down to the Allied command phase. This is when I pay the price for the Prussians coming on board. I don't pay it with the Allied forces. And yeah. And then I start preparing them and whatnot for however they're going to come. And I'm going to have to figure out what to do with all those counter trays. There are other places I can put them, but this has been very handy. Obviously, I got a lot of space down here. I got a lot of space up there. But I tend to use both of those space. Not so much here, but I tend to use the space over there as I do over there for a place where the chart sometimes is needed. Although honestly, most of the fighting's happening kind of here, but when I get to over here, I'm on that side of the table. So I might have to move things around more than I do right now. Of course, I could put the chart on top of the counter table. Counter trays. Yeah, our brain isn't working very well right now. But the biggie is that the Allies are going to take that big 20-point hit. And yeah, that's not good. It's Thursday. This is the only non-rainy day. And I really should have gone shopping, but I kind of decided yesterday I'm still not really well enough. And ended up waking up, 4 p.m. after looking at some email and stuff. It's 4:40, almost time to play raid. That's real time, not my time. I'm an hour later, I guess. Right? No, it can't be. I don't know. I didn't get hit with all kind of little red buttons, so. But we're going to try to do the Allied command and rally phases here. This is where they lose their points. Again, they're not going to actually activate any new units. Strangely, I had already activated some that I thought I hadn't, and finally got them moving this turn. What about charges? Yeah, we got to keep an eye out. I think I'm going to have some over here. I think over there things are, it looks like I'm down to one cav unit, and it's probably disordered. After I burned those British points, another 23 points, getting them down to 38, right? I said, wow, wasn't I around 35? I think that's the number I came up with before the firing phase. So I recounted. I'm at 37 routed points. Now, there's a margin of error as to how correct these are. There's no way I can go back and figure it out. It's more likely I missed than double hit points. But the Allied army is hanging on by 1 point. 1 point. They're broken, basically. I also have to look up what goes on about the Prussians, which I forgot to do. Just trying to get a grip on what the hell I'm up to. I can't find the Prussian markers. Now, I'm almost certain they're there, but I'm starting to paw through and mess up my command organizations. I think I gotta reorganize my Prussians. And I kind of have to take a dump. So I'm kind of thinking about taking a bit of a break here in the command phase in order to get an extra set of markers for here. I figured I'd be able to do things pretty easily. Why I hid them over here. Oh boy. All right. Boy, the need to evacuate became very immediate, and I had to run down and take care of that. Alert the news media. But I'm actually kind of worried that my illness may be entering a new stage, because that was very odd. Either that or I was really, really excited to read those rolls. Okay, so the first question I have here, and it's not answered in the rolls, is do the Prussians pay their 15 immediately? I'm going to say no, because they're not on the board, they're not fighting. This isn't just fatigue. And no matter what, it kind of, I don't know, it just feels like it would overly penalize the Prussian army. The way things stand right now, the Allied army has lost Waterloo. It's, it hasn't been triggered yet, but at some point very soon, they're at one morale point. At some point very soon, they're going to flip over that edge and are going to have to start withdrawing their units. The Prussian army cannot beat the French Grand Army. such as it is in the Napoleonic Restoration, the 100 Days or whatever. Is that the right term? See, now I can't remember if the 100 Days is the time leading up to Waterloo or the time leading up to the surrender of Paris in 13 or 14. No, I just can't hold these things in my head anymore. But okay, we're gonna get, and feel free to leave me comments. At least I'll know it for a moment or two before the dementia sets in. So nothing's coming on the board yet, not until the next Allied march phase. And I have to cope with the Allied charges and rallies still, as I try to figure out where the hell I am. And then I'm gonna break because I'm already past raid time. And quite obviously, I can't commit another brigade or I'd be paying for it right now, and I'm 1 point off. If I commit a brigade, it will end up breaking the army. Honestly, I should be starting my disengagement at this point, I think. Most things in life that should start with an artillery barrage, right? Nah, not in this game. It actually starts with a cav charge. That's the only one I've got going. Everything else is disordered or leaving. I've got a lot of unused reserves that just couldn't hold the line, couldn't make it up to the line in time. I think the thing I'm most particularly worried about is those Brunswickers. The fact that I may have cheated against the Allies and didn't bring them up quickly enough, that doesn't really matter. They activated in this cycle. They wouldn't have gotten into the line yet. But they might be able to help cover withdrawal of other units or whatever. Some decent formed units might be of some value to me. What I can't really do effectively is I can't continue to really hold my position, or else I will lose points more rapidly than what I'm causing to the French, which is kind of where the point balance comes. Of course, if I could break the French army with a broken Allied army, that might make some sense. I feel like that would be kind of cheating the game. Okay, time to rally. This doesn't require me to come in and keep chattering, I think. Rallies now, so it's not 1 point away, but, it's like 10. I see an issue. One is with the commands that have been, or I see a few issues. The skirmishers themselves, I believe there's a rule that says they can't operate without being within a certain range of friendly infantry. So, and it's like 5 hexes or something like that. They don't have to have the line of communications the way they do for ammo recovery, but I think that more or less means I have to withdraw from the Hougoumont, which is another 15 points, right? Another factor is I've got units that have been completely disintegrated into these or completely disintegrated from the map. I've been paying for them because there's no easy way to tell where they are, right? I can point to one in particular. I think Maitland here. I think I could not find his brigade anywhere, right? So he's been kicking around as sort of this extra commander. I think I can run him somewhere and just declare his unit no longer activated and thus take him off the board or whatever and not pay for him anymore. But the ability to have that awareness of which units are completely gone is going to be tough until I get most of my units off the board and start seeing, I don't know where these guys are. I don't know what they are. There are also rules for pursuing the enemy, which allows you to lock them out so that their brigade can't be taken off of there and continues to charge against victory points. And you can say, well, broken is broken, right? Not quite. Once you're broken, you get this army demoralized marker, and you start counting negative negative points of morale, which kind of indicates how badly you're hit. Now, I'm going to have to concentrate on the Prussians, but we're in a totally different stage of the game than we've been. As far as I'm concerned, the French have won the battle. What are the Prussians doing? Trying to cover the Allied retreat, I guess? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Again, I don't think they can win the battle. They do have a little bit more morale than the French do, though. All right, getting close to midnight here on Thursday. I don't know if I'm going to make it dancing tomorrow either. You know, I just feel like shit. And as my wife and I would have played with, you are shit. But yeah. Anyway, we're on the French movement side of things at this point. Might as well. I do have one cav charge set up. Okay. You know, to some extent, I could just call the game here and say it's a French victory, right? But that's a sign that I'm, you know, in kind of the winding down period of it. And I got to figure out what I'm going to read rules-wise, because I should have enough time left in this game to do something that's, you know, not going to just take me a couple hours to read the rules. A lot of time dressing the French lines at this point. Not just, you know, to create a contiguous line. More importantly, to get the units in command that are where they're supposed to be. We got forces coming here through the woods, heading off to wherever the Prussians are going to show up. Another column over here, 6th Corps. Bunch of artillery streaming back out of ammo. I could try to drag ammo out of something else, or at the very least, use gunners here. Now this is one place where my violation of the rules has put me in a kind of a weird situation, where by ignoring the rules on gun, well, by modifying whatever, by making the rules on guns so that they get spiked and they're knocked out and they're gone and they just record victory points there. First of all, those points, the Allies have lost a handful of points due to that. So they may be 10 points closer to collapse than they should be. I didn't think that would be an issue, but given how close the point totals are right now, maybe I should be like giving them a little bit more leeway based on those guns. Anyway, but outside of that as well, there would be guns with ammo kicking around. A couple of French guns fell that, when the Allied army falls back, would then be accessible and usable. I'm fine with how it is. I don't feel like the game is that carefully like aligned to reality to make that absolutely the case. One thing that I did was I pulled, I'm pulling guns from back here that maybe I shouldn't be pulling, because I have, this might survive. And, you know, it's a gun with a couple of ammo. I might be able to use it somewhere. I don't think it's going to make a hell of a lot of difference, but by streaming my guns with their crews away. Now, of course, I could always detach a crew and send it running back to go get it, which might end up being the case. As it is, I just want them out of the way so that they don't confuse me. And we've got actually a pretty good alignment in terms of the French forces forming a nice line. This is sort of the first time I've seen this in a while. Kind of like it. Coming around the flank here, dealing with some of the looser forces back here, and then over there as well. Just, you know, they're not going to do anything impressive, but we want to make sure they don't get rear attacks on the flanking force over there. And I guess I go to the Allied shock, which I definitely have at least one. The only melee I did was this Cav. He routed easily the French force that was in front of him. They were so beaten up they couldn't get a countercharge. They succeeded in the same basic role to not have been disordered, but yeah. And, you know, looking along here, look, there's places I could hit a disordered unit here, but I take fire from 2 units. Chances are I don't survive. You know, I don't make it in and do well. I end up routing, you know, or, well, disordering and falling back several hexes, which might not be that bad, to be honest, if I'm trying to disengage. Because that's fire I'm going to have to take when I'm disengaging anyway. But it's like a single sporadic thing, and what happens if I end up wading into the French troops? That doesn't sound good at all. Elsewhere, I don't have any, so that means I have hit the game turn phase. Hey. And next turn the Prussians actually come on. With a lot of time before we have to pay for anything we release, it's possible the French throw the guards in to go deal with the Prussians. I don't know. If I defeat, if I send the Allied army routing away, I'm going to want to demobilize some of my divisions, I think. Well, some of my brigades. And that's an interesting factor as well. Get that, you know, because I'm paying 24 points a turn. That's like not a lot of turns that I have that I can stay on the board. And the game ends there. So if the French stay this active, that may be the issue, is that by so many forces being active, we pushed the combat across the entire board, and that meant that the Allied army is going to collapse. And if that's kind of the case, feels like there's sort of a cheap way of winning that way, by just accelerating the fight everywhere. I don't know if that was, again, I'm not a student of Waterloo by any means. I don't know if that was the case. I don't know if the entire French army forced across. But it feels like both armies are overcommitted in terms of the amount of morale they've lost already. I mean, let's be honest. Things started, what, on turn 11 or so. We spent 14 turns. We have another 24 to go before the end of the battle. It's pretty hard to see with this level of commitment that both armies wouldn't break. But clearly, this is what you want to do if you need to break the Anglo-Allied army before the Prussians come. And I think there are restrictions once the Anglo-Allied break. I think the Prussians kind of stop coming. So that's why I say I think this battle's over. But if I don't break the Anglo-Allied army quickly and the Prussians start deploying on the map, then I've got a problem, because they've got a hell of a lot of morale. And I'm going to have to reduce, you know, the amount of morale I'm losing. I may have to let the Anglo-Allied army withdraw safely at the very least. And then it comes down to this weird situation where, like, yeah, how much can I demobilize, how quickly before, you know, and how much do I need to face the Prussians? What do I need to move to do anything? I think it's probably in my best interest not to commit the guard yet. just because I've got so much committed already, and wait until I start getting some points back. Things are going to be really weird at the end here. I get the feeling, again, like this is... the Prussians were already marching on the field and fighting the French at the point that the French collapsed. So it just feels to me like the game has gone towards both armies collapsing too quickly. And if that's a matter of the French committing everything or so much of their army, that forces the Allies to commit a lot of their army. And therefore, it's a winning strategy, I think. Or at least one that... so if this is not the historical situation, like if the French didn't commit this heavily, then that's a flaw against the game, because the game is encouraging you to do it. If it is the historical French situation, and again, I'm not really sure, like everything that I know of is basically the battle here, not swinging out as far over here, right? And not the Allies sending and winning the battle over here particularly. But if it is the historical situation, the battle is definitely over too soon. I don't know how long it should take. I don't think it goes out all the way to here. But historically, I think the French broke before that. But there certainly was more time that both armies were fighting, you know. And it was the arrival of the Prussians that basically sealed the doom, but it was a doom that was including the fact that committing the Guard was a factor in it. And if you go back to the rolls, you'll see what the effects of committing the Guard are. They're not that impressive. It's more points on there. And if they retreat, there's problems for the French. But I think it's just nearby units take problems. I don't think it affects the overall army morale. And then there's an optional role, which is that the Anglo-Allied troops don't, many of the Anglo-Allied troops, basically the non-British Hanoverian King's German Legion, and it may include the Landwehr as ones that are not excluded, suffer a problem if they're facing Guard, which makes sense. The Guard was feared. Anyway, so that's the end of this turn. That's going to put us at the beginning of the next. We'll start with French command and rally and whatnot. And yeah, I definitely have to start, one, I have to break the Allies, which is a painful thing. So I do have to keep fighting a little bit, and then I have to start demobilizing forces so that I can face the Prussians with the stuff that's kind of close to them. Kind of, I guess, late-ish on Friday morning, because I'm later than everyone else, but sunny day, and it's kind of a shame, but I'm either too sick to go dancing and then probably too sick to go shopping. I mean, I definitely don't feel well right now, but I'm going to be going back to sleep. Or I'm going dancing and I don't want to go shopping. It's supposed to be sunny again on Sunday, and that's like a sign that probably next week will be sunny. All right, let's kick into the new turn. At least get the French command and rally phase. I'm not going to issue any more units for reasons I elucidated earlier. Don't want to throw the Guard in. I'm already paying a lot. I expect to break the Allies perhaps this turn, probably this turn, which means at some point I gotta start demobilizing, but I can't do that yet unless I have some battered unit that I can pull out. Or, you know, I've got stuff like over here, but that's close to the Prussians, and I'd want to use it for that. In terms of Cav, I don't think I actually have anything over here. I think everything's disordered over here. Oops. Should be going. I think everything's disordered over here, and I don't have an attack available. I thought I had one and chose not to because it was too weak against what it was facing. You check this guy? I don't know. Anyway, over here, these guys are disordered. This guy's not, but he'd be hitting through the soft cover. That would disorder him. And although the enemy's facing away from me, he gets a chance to turn around. So that wouldn't go terribly well. And the soft cover balances out the charge bonus, so it kind of doesn't matter either way. But I'm also a weaker force. I don't want to drive my own points down, although I have to break the Allies this turn, right? That just puts me to the rally phase. As usual, that's about all I can do. I feel myself not feeling too well now. It's kind of funny, the French have basically no routed units. Every now and then somebody slips away a little bit, but they've got a much higher proportion of leaders that I can use. I think they're, I don't know. You know what it is? Their corps are relatively small. So they have a lot of corps commanders, which gives you an extra commander. I think their brigades are about the same size as the Allied units. The Allies don't have corps. They have, I mean, they do. They have a first and a second corps. They have two corps and then this big reserve corps that doesn't have an extra leader for it. So they have, I mean, they have the Uxbridge Cav reserve, but they have far, far fewer excess leaders. The French army is also larger, so if like one area is getting more beat up than another, that area can attract some leaders, which is not why we have so many over here, but anyway. All right, gonna break, may or may not be back again today. I know I didn't play much, but it's hard. Before raid time on a Friday, if I'm going dancing, well, I don't know. I just don't know. Obviously, I'm well enough that I would go almost like any time before this, but now I'm like getting into this kind of not wanting to do so. All right, let's do the Allied movements and whatnot. I don't know what they're able to do, you know, but I did restack at least one of the little slots of Prussians, and then on the way up, someone fell back over, but it's not as much of a mess as it had been. And yeah, I don't know. I get to moving the Anglo-Allied troops. Boom, 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 boom. Well, here come the Prussians. Anyway, should I have? I don't know. Anyway, so this is 4th Corps up here and 2nd Corps here. The only restriction, they have to be on the roads because they're not close enough. Once they get closer to the French, they can deploy. They have to be on the roads. Oh, shit. I cheated. Couldn't enter here. Okay, all of these are coming off. So there's basically not room for the Second Corps to enter yet. Once the Anglo-Allied army surrenders or demoralizes, anybody who's not in range of Blucher or muffling, and muffling detaches here, and I'll get him moving. He has absolutely no command capacity over the Anglo-Allied army. Anyone who's not within command range of either of those is not allowed to come onto the map. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. Ends up deactivating, and they can only be reactivated by one of the two army command units. Okay, so all this effort that I put here, and these are the best units, but the Second Corps can't enter until all of 4th is on the board. And basically, I mean, conceivably, I could create a little bit of space. I could maybe, I don't know, because the road movement, these are blocking it. Yeah, this is, 4th Corps pretty much fills the map. Capabilities. So these Second Corps units are coming away. As I forgot the map B restriction that I can only enter on eastern roads coming off map B. That's these two, unless I want to be parked up here. And just thought it was all the eastern edge map. Is it? Shit. Now I gotta check it again. But in addition, the Prussian First Corps, what there is of it, comes in on turn 34, so in about 10 turns. You don't think the game's going to still be in any kind of doubt at that point. Basically, only these two roads that I'm able to come in through. So, there was another restriction, which is the deactivation restriction, and the fact that I only have Blucher, and it's kind of hard to keep the entire army within his 8 hex range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not there right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's put him there. But it basically means I have to keep the army kind of consolidated, and whatever's in the rear is probably going to park until he goes back and reactivates them. The deactivated brigades and whatever will come off the total. And now, although it is certainly raid time, I will start moving my Anglo-Allied. Locations the Allies were able to, or have been able to, do kind of an orderly withdrawal, leaving a skirmisher behind in each hex and pulling their units back. However, yeah, that's the 3 hexes. These Dutch weren't all in command, now they are, so they're not going to be able to withdraw in time with everything else. The Landwehr, you know, it basically just has to turn and try to make a hoof for it. I might as well exchange some fire, but it being there kind of means we're going to break our point total. It's during the reciprocal fire probably. Because we were damn close, right? We were at 1, we're probably at around 10, but about that many losses will be taken, I'm sure. Elsewhere, I don't know. I'm working my way across. I use the tweezers as kind of a marker to indicate, hey, where am I? The same way I use those little things. One of the things that I like about this system is the attempt to bake in the withdrawal rules. Most games it's just like, hey, you win or you don't. But the fact that the Allied army has to worry about their morale is probably going to break, and that's going to cost me more victory points than that simple breaking, right? So when we come to the the total of victory points, we're going to come to a situation where the Anglo-Allied army is going to be providing negative victory points or negative morale, which gets applied to the Prussian morale at the end of the game, just for victory point considerations. The French will be under the same kind of considerations. Now, the French probably are looking at, sure, I get advantages by shooting up the Brits. I get more points for that, but I also don't want to lose my army and have it break, right? We'd end up in some kind of indecisive result if my army breaks and the Prussians are still positive and will be close to a zero total. However, disengagement is really fucking hard in this, largely due to the command rules, but also due to the withdrawal fire and all that. The combination of the command and the withdrawal fire means that I have a line still here and a line still here. Now, I could have backed away from some of these, but it means I take fire and I would have left a flank dangling and all kind of ugly stuff like that. You can see I broke down some of the King's German there, as well as what I broke out of here. It's very hard to find skirmishers at this point in the game. I don't know how to get out of here. I mean, I'm just going to have to take the shots or something, but I can't afford to. And this is another thing. The King's German here have to kind of anchor because I have to have units, and likewise this unit has to be an anchor so that I have my skirmisher line stretching out all the way over here. Withdrawing the cav on the flank that I was victorious on, that's relatively easy. And the French probably aren't going to be in a particularly strong position to press things there. But, you know, I've got bumbling Dutch units. I've got to get into their formations and whatnot. The Brunswickers have turned around and marched back a little bit. A lot of units have done that I was planning on committing to a reserve. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to put fresh troops in the line in order to allow damaged units to withdraw, which seems like it's the right thing to do, but it's not, because I just end up getting even more units entangled into the fighting. I want to get away from the French. That's my goal. Now, the nice thing about it all is skirmishers are pretty damn good at this. But they do have to be within range of other units. Over here, I'm just kind of having a failure to withdraw. I can't find anything. There was something weird going on here. I think I saw the artillery piece as the leader of that unit. I've got leaders who have no units running away. I'm going to disband those units, or demobilize those units, as it were. They're all on the board as skirmishers. I haven't allowed myself to do this before, and this might have saved the Anglo-Allied army quite a few points. Had I allowed that to happen earlier. There are no real rules for it, though. Like, it's unclear what you should be able to do, and it felt like, well, their units are fighting, so I shouldn't be allowed to demobilize them, but now they're in a fighting withdrawal, so screw it. I'm going to allow that at the next opportunity. So I've got some of these brigades that are just going to lose their leadership because they have no more units. And other places, hey, I'm running around trying to catch the routed units. That'll take off my penalty. I have 30 here. But the Huguenot, if that falls, that's worth 15. So I can't afford to give this line up. I just can't. Doing so, obviously, once I rout, or once my army demoralizes, fine, I'll give it up. That'll be a big morale boost for the French, though. What are the French going to do once they break the Allied army? Well, I don't think they want to engage the Prussians particularly heavily. I think what they want to do is set up a line that will dissuade the Prussians from attacking. Because a defensive line should be able to inflict more casualties than an attack would. Although, when we look over here, the French definitely got a point advantage over the Anglo-Allied army. Of course, it came down off the hill, which was the big mistake. All right, that's it for now. I'm going to try to go dancing, I think, but I don't know. running like, this took an hour, you know, to do the Anglo-Allied movement, and the Prussians took a huge amount of time, honestly. Because I had to look up a lot of rules, I screwed shit up, whatever. But I'm kind of worried about my time situation in terms of going dancing. So here it is, I guess Sunday, wee hours of Sunday morning. I slept all through Saturday, past raid time, which, you know, I get home and I play a little bit, but I didn't manage to finish my missions, and I ended up missing a lot of my daily stuff that I gotta do. No great horror there, but I know, but it's like, it's one of the few things in my life that I've been getting done, right? And on top of that, a little while back, I pre-ordered a couple of games. I'm trying to think of what they were. I know one of them is Bruce Harper is the designer of this, is doing a World War I game. Now, I have tons of World War I games. Obviously, my favorite is La Grande Guerre, but I've got quite a few that I haven't played yet that I really want to give a chance to. On the other hand, I'm giving a chance to the Fatal Alliances with conversion to World War I. Not the conversion, it's put out as a standalone now. And I kind of feel like I want to give this a shot, especially since I think it combines the political development stuff into the game itself in a way that is really, the political and economic stuff in a way that may be more like the Gathering Storm stuff. I still have to play Storm over Asia, and that means another full game of A World at War. Oh, I don't know about that. I got a similar issue with the Triumph and Tragedy. I have to play Conquest and Consequence, and I kind of want to mix them at the same time as well. And it's like my eyes are bigger than my remaining lifespan, I hope, in terms of all the stuff that I have to do. Trying to remember what the other one was. I know I ordered the Stellar Horizons 2, but this was another P500 that looked like something interesting from GMT, and I ended up foolishly ordering it. I think. I don't know. It really doesn't matter, you know. I either figure out how to get money out of my retirement accounts, or I'm screwed. So, all right, where are we? We're on. I paused right after the Allied March. We're on the French shock phase. It's highly unlikely they have any, but I want to make sure. I don't see any cav charges laid out. By the way, yeah, the reason it's Sunday morning and I slept all Saturday is I did indeed go out. And I don't know, you know, whatever. One good effect of it, though, was I got an invite for Thanksgiving dinner. I haven't done anything like that in so damn long. It should be interesting. Assuming, again, I actually get around to doing it. I managed to find one of the few cases where it's right to do shock combat in this game. Well, where it might be. A flank attack against some Landwehr, which has taken a hit. So I'd be on the 100% at +3. But there's a leader, so that drops it to +2. There's a hill that drops it to +1. I get my flank fire anyway. I'm just not convinced. And of course, this line of skirmishers is just going to absolutely stymie me no matter what. So I'm not convinced that I want to make a risky attack when I get to outshoot them. I'll keep looking. There was nothing. And down to the artillery fire, the French won the initiative. I think they only have one gun left. I might have one hidden somewhere. that I'm not really aware of. I've got one over there, but that's limbered and not doing anything. And yeah, I mean, so many are out of ammo and streaming back. There's a couple coming forward to, you know, take up the slack, although I'd probably send them after the Prussians. The Brits had 2 guns, the French only 1. Fired here, it was effective. All the fire was effective. The French blew a hole in the Allied line, but the Allies blew a hole in the French line. So, I don't know. It certainly caused more casualties for the French. I think they took 3, they did 1, so whatever. But that's going to put us on the infantry fire. I caught myself moving the Prussian marker instead of the French marker. Yeah, something obviously that wouldn't happen if you were playing 2-player, or maybe if I was using the other track alone, it would have helped me. But yeah, their color is close enough that I'm just like, oh, blue, move blue. I don't think I'll make the mistake again, though. Facet playing in favor of skirmishers in big stacks in good terrain. So I just hit this. It had a regular French unit. That unit routed because its morale is, you know, decreased by the hits it takes. It was a 4 morale unit. It had taken 3 hits. It's down to a 1. It goes up to a 3 because of the terrain. But a big stack of skirmishers there would be morale 5. Goes up by 2 to a 7. Okay, that's not going to fail, but it actually gets a -1 for blowing a unit off the top. But still, it's not going to fail its morale check. So skirmishers can basically hold good terrain indefinitely, which is why, you know, you don't see like a break there or anything ever. It just, even though there's a lot of firepower going into it, it's not gonna disintegrate. Eventually, it's gonna be low ammo, which I believe subtracts another 1 off, which would make it a 1 in 6 chance each shot. And that low ammo is gonna persist because there's no way in anymore. As the 2 sides' little markers converge to the point where I'm going to be able to just stay on one side of the board and then switch to the other side of the board. And actually it'll all be back here, but just because the French are going to be running here, well, I'll be over on that side for some of the shots over there maybe. We're nearing the end of my intense walking period of this turn. Every turn has a period where I'm getting my steps in if I play through that during the day. No, but doing about as much walking as I would in a workplace, you know. Yeah, over an intensive period of time, not at Amazon, but at the kind of work that I would do, where I'm sitting in an office chair most of the day, but getting up and walking around quite a bit and trying to find every goddamn excuse to get something if I'm in cubicle land. I did think about something that kind of disturbs me. So, if the Anglo-Allied army breaks before the Prussians show up on the map, they don't show up. Now, I'm not sure. It may be that the First Corps doesn't show up if these other corps show up, and the Anglo-Allied breaks in between. But it's kind of a weird situation because the only thing the Prussian army is reasonably doing right here is trying to reduce the casualties that the Anglo-Allied army is going to take. Put some pressure on the French, make sure they don't get a good pursuit and get a huge point total in the pursuit rolls for the game. It's almost like this rule was more designed with the idea of, you won the game. Deal with it, you know. It feels kind of weird to have, we're in a situation where the Anglo-Allied army is obviously breaking, right? And the way the system handles an army breaking, it's not an on-off thing. It's not like everything's just fucked and can't fire and has to run away or anything like that. No, it's encouraged through the victory point situation. And there may be some minor impacts, like morale is reduced by 1 or something like that, which makes it impossible for the army to stand. But it's not like, you know, some kind of switch is there, right? And so, like, the Prussian army is like, fuck them, you know, let them rout. That feels completely wrong to me. It feels like they should come in regardless, unless it's a complete rout and, you know, the French army looks solid and everything. And even then, they probably would still try to deflect some of the blow. So it's kind of a weird circumstance there as to why that particular rule is written the way it is. Again, I suspect it's because, oh, you won. But oh, you won isn't really the issue. I view that the French have won already. I don't know if the Anglo-Allied army has been broken, but I'm pretty convinced that they have already won the game. And yet, and if you break the Anglo-Allied army, I think that's more or less going to have happened. So then the only real question is, well, what about the score situation? Well, the score situation, it kind of feels weird that the Prussians just wouldn't even show up. They'd say, screw it, based on this simple fact that the Anglo-Allied army did a little worse than, you know, they did in this scenario. Just a little bit. Anyway, or the French were a little bit more aggressive or whatever. It just feels weird. All right. I got some time to light my fresh pipe. You know, I feel like I need a break at some point during the firing. There's so much of it. And so, yeah, it was a good moment. At the end of the fire, the Anglo-Allied line looks really ragged. On top of that, they're down to 19. I'm almost certain that breaks them. I'll have to do a count, and I'll have to check the rolls, see when that comes into effect. Obviously, I've been checking as soon as it could have happened in each case, you know. The points weren't great enough, you know, from the shock phases and whatnot for it to have driven it over. But this time, yeah. First of all, earlier, only the fire phase could have possibly thrown it over, right? Just there were so many points. But now I feel like any time that there are losses, there's a possibility that it went over the edge. I think routed units can't be rallied either, which is going to put us into negative territory right away. But again, I have to look at the whole set of rules for that. And yeah, I don't know. Massive 51 points of routed units. That's going to get us to 32. I'm flipping these over to help remind me of something. That I go up instead of down or something. I got this marker too, but that's not going to be sufficient. What all happens? Okay. So the effects of the demoralization. Each friendly command phase, the effectiveness rating of each infantry and cav unit is reduced by 1. I think that's cumulative. It doesn't say that, but otherwise I would think it's from then on they're reduced by 1, which means those guys are just not going to be able to stand. The army has to flee as fast as it can. But beyond that, and we have the turn of the route marked there. I used a routed marker. They say use a disordered. Same thing. I just feel like routed conveys the thought a little bit more. In addition, the army accumulates morale points as negative. Okay, we're already recording those. This demoralization would have happened already, but it doesn't actually have any effect during the fire phase, right? It's just, hey, when that flips over, it doesn't actually make a difference. It's not like the morale went down. It doesn't go down until next turn. The first command phase of each hour, it's going to be 2 points for each brigade that hasn't been demobilized. Routing formations can't be rallied, and the Anglo-Allied and Prussian armies will be combined for points at the end of turn 50. Conceivably, I might end it early with some discussion. Now, there's one more thing I have to look up, which is the brigade commitment, which is in the command roles, the deactivation. And what's really sad is to get units off the board, I'm going to have to activate them and run them away. The Prussians can't save me, you know, so whatever's out there is like free points available to use, which means the Allies are going to accumulate quite a few negative points. It's possible, though, that the French army also will get demoralized. Where are we here? No unit can exit the map until at least one army is demoralized. Once a single army is demoralized, any unit may exit the map within the following restrictions. This is the special rules. A unit can only exit the map from a road hex adjacent to the edge of the map. Undemoralized units may exit the map from any road hex. Demoralized units may only go according to retreat restrictions. I think that's going to be the roads on their side of the map. I can look that up, but you have to spend a movement point. Skirmisher, artillery, and routing are permanently removed from all further consideration after exiting the map. Other units which exit are stacked adjacent to the hex until deactivated, or until an enemy unit exits the map from the same road hex, thus prohibiting any units which exited that road from being deactivated. So they will continue to generate victory points or morale hits or whatever because their brigade is still active. Unit may never re-enter the map. No movement or combat occurs off map. Yeah, so my feeling here is that if any enemy units exit that map, like a single skirmisher or something, whatever, if any tiny force exits the map off that same road, it prevents that road from deactivating any units. You can only deactivate brigades at the end of the first command phase of each hour after the effects of battle fatigue. Yeah. I didn't realize that was the case, but I don't think I've deactivated anything yet. So, good enough. You have to pay for the units for having used them in that hour, and then, yeah, that makes sense. And then you're allowed to deactivate them. And you're only allowed to deactivate them at the end of hours. So I'm going to have to like kind of start tracking brigades and see what I can get off the map and whatnot. Routed units, I mean, they're just destroyed, basically. I could remove them from the map, but they create some clutter that's of interest, I guess. I don't know. That's going to put me, then, to the Allied command phase. Oh, joy. This is where I don't think we actually get a morale hit this turn. The way it's worded, it was the turn after, I believe. No. They will be at -1 starting this turn. Interesting. So yeah, all Allied morales have just dropped. All Anglo-Allied morale has just dropped by 1. And what about the Prussians? Okay, we got to look them up too. Prussians can bring their entire army on. They're not limited to what has just come on. They're not limited to the Second and Fourth Corps. They can bring on that little bit of First Corps that they get onto the field towards the end on turn 34. So now we get to see a pursuit, something that we don't get to see in many games unless I try to modify and extend the game scenarios so that they allow for it. It's something I often do. It's kind of cool to see it in a, built into the game. Something I always like there to be some kind of rules for in a system, for the simple fact that I have these fantasies, let's say, of being able to string together battles into a campaign or something like that, where the effects of the pursuit would matter. Honestly, it's not that likely. There aren't many games, if there are a few, but there aren't many games where it's reasonable to fit together different battles and their effects on one another inside a campaign in the board gaming world. In the miniatures world, it fits a lot better. One of the few exceptions to that where it would work pretty well is air and naval combat, where there's not really a lot of terrain. Oh, look, it's Mount Everest. Where there's not a lot of terrain that's fixed or anything like that. So yeah, in some naval situations, you would have like a blockade or something like that, and an attempt to run that would affect things. But honestly, you know, really only minis games give you that capability to like generate a map usually. And I guess there's some exceptions you could make for that. You could use kind of geomorphic tiles and stuff like that. I haven't seen many games that do that. Obviously, you know, with things like I don't know, like Squad Leader or the Panzer Leader, Panzer Blitz games or whatnot, you could fit maps together in different ways and kind of do things. But yeah, in general, and even with minis, most people play minis. They're playing out the historical battles. You have to have some kind of terrain scenario generator in the system, and I've seen a few of those, not many. Much more likely I'm seeing people playing out historical battles with their minis rather than play them in some sort of campaign, and I've only been in one such campaign for land combat. And honestly, I fought like 2 battles in it, and it was kind of cool. But it was like, yeah, you get to basically design the battlefield based on maneuver die rolls by the players, as opposed to, you know, having maps and maps that you can set up what the terrain would look like if you attacked different historical areas. I feel like with the advent, you know, and the power of computers and whatnot, somebody could make, and maybe it already exists, something like a Google Maps of how things looked in different time periods, right? Like kind of take Google Earth, and it would be a humongous amount of work unless, you know, AI was doing a great deal of it. But just to give some kind of estimate of that. Now, obviously, you know, for the minis gaming market, yeah, that's not going to pay off, that kind of work. But maybe broadly, it would pay off, like, or as a hobby effort by someone. So that may be something that's actually available. Much more likely would be to take campaign maps and handle like a certain operational area that's relatively limited. Like you could do the entire Waterloo campaign and have all the maps there, so that, you know, you could put it together the same way you could actually, like, you know, have the 4 battles. You could conceive. Okay, look, Le Retour de l'Empereur is huge, right? But there's probably more missing map than there is actual map, and things like Embrace a Foul Wind, you know, have these like, well, you jump from one map to the other and it takes so much time and stuff like that. That conceivably could have been done already, right? Somebody could have just prepared much, much larger games that cover everything, the way like 7 Days links together and stuff. But that's pretty rare, I have to say, that you see games that big. But for minis, I could definitely see a resource like that online, allowing you to construct the terrain and whatnot. And then you could do kind of an operational movement, kind of like Summer Storm does, do an operational movement that then zooms you into the tactical situation that you're going to be in. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway. We're going to pause at this point because I'm kind of fatigued, but we'll be getting into the Allied movement. The thing that's abundantly clear is that the few little points that I got maybe for not demobilizing a couple of brigades, they weren't going to make a difference. It was bigger things and the overall casualty rate that determined that the Allied army was going to collapse. I know I look at this like 20-something points that both armies have committed. I'm like, wow, your army just demoralizes by marching around, basically. And it would. If we're looking at 20 points, 10 turns of full engage, of, you know, all your forces essentially just marching, right? It doesn't wipe you out. Call it 15. What is 15 turns? Couple of hours of marching. That feels wrong, right? Now, obviously, it's not meant to just be marching and counter-marching. It's the idea that the troops are fighting, too. But the system couldn't be genericized to cover, you know, those kind of broader aspects that I'm talking about, where, you know, you'd be talking about maneuvering whole forces and everything. I feel like there might be something like a limited activity pick, which allows you to march, but far enough from the enemy that, like, it doesn't count against your battle total in the same way that the actual game system does. It would actually probably count exceedingly lower, but the problem with all that is there's units that are getting charged that really aren't doing much, right? There may be a far distance to the enemy, but got hit by some artillery fire and thus had to make a morale check. It doesn't feel like it should be getting the same cost as for the guys who are right on the line. Now, obviously, the guys who are right on the line are taking casualties too, which is a big difference. And obviously, the bigger difference. So I don't know. But at some point or another, there's like, yeah, how different is it that I got plinked by a gun, you know, real early in the battle at range 8, range 7, whatever, and now can't demobilize in place again. And it's not worth the enemy firing their guns again. It's just a matter of, yeah, they managed to hit me, you know, because they put their guns a little forward. It would actually encourage certain historical methods of utilizing the artillery, where it would push up and do an initial bombardment and everything. The ammo supplies don't allow for it, though, to tell you the truth. The artillery is just too effective close up. You want to save your shot for that, in general. Something of a weird situation here. A matter of, I don't know whether or not I want to do this, right? I have some cav here. I could launch, well, really just one cav charge coming out of this guy. It would disrupt the French pursuit. There's no question of that. Is it worth risking the cav for that? Yeah, I think it is, but it's a hard call, and I have to. This one, he's got to figure out his way out of that bag. I don't know what else to say there. So I went with charges in both cases, but another thing is the Allies have to activate units, so they're starting to activate more units to get them off the board or to support the withdrawal. In this case, it's a couple of cav units, actually three cav brigades that I'm going to be using probably to support withdrawals, but you know, whatever. On top of that, I ran into something which is a little weird. The routed units, the rules aren't very specific about it. I know how I'm handling it. As soon as they leave the map, I'm treating them as if they're destroyed. They're just gone. I think that's actually how they're worded to be done. But what they aren't is withdrawing off the map as a brigade so that they can be demobilized or whatever. They just go away. Their points are already tracked on there. The French routed units are not tracked on there. I got to worry about the French routed units though, because we're down to 100. Now, there aren't a lot of them on the board, but yeah, it's something they have to keep in mind. Otherwise, they too will have to leave the battlefield. It doesn't seem like that terrible a thing, but there's 40 extra morale points, or no, sorry, 35 extra morale points, right? No, 25 extra morale points for the 2 locations, which is a big deal. You do not want, you know, that's the points for holding the battlefield, basically. It doesn't really make a difference. They're not, like, they have no importance in and of themselves. The only reason they're important is that they anchored this sort of central position of the Allied army. They're not anything important. It's not like, you know, these are really, they're farmhouses, but they do represent the fact that you control the battlefield as a whole at the end. You force the enemy to withdraw. And if the Prussians can get those, that's actually kind of a neat thing. Yeah, I'm working my way through the rallies. Unfortunately, I just started doing the routed units because it's just movement. I'm going to kind of combine everything together, I guess. Skirmisher effectiveness is becoming exceedingly low because now, if they rout, they don't come back. I don't know, you know, I mean, they're still potent and whatnot, but in a different sort of way, like, they become a lot more fragile, I guess, because they're relatively, they have a high morale, but they rout with one hit, you know? So, like, I mean, they disappear with one hit. They rout with one hit in terms of, like, you only have to fail once on a die roll for them to rout. Of course, they do have a certain sturdiness built in, so maybe it's not that big a deal. Anyway, I guess this is what we've got after the rally phase, and that puts us to the French movement. Would really like to, I know it would be cheating, but I would really like to be able to demobilize units that don't exist anymore as I discover that they don't exist, just so that I can, I may do that, because in a sense I feel like that rule, that whole the structure of the rule around, or the meaning of the rule around, like, how do you demobilize a unit that doesn't exist, you know, is pretty weird as it is. So, like, maybe I'll just do that as I discover units that no longer that have a commander but nothing else. Again, I don't think those points have been a huge factor, and I've probably missed as many points in terms of just tracking. Nah, but I probably missed a fair amount, so maybe it's kind of a balancing factor. And from the French point of view, the question comes to, how much do I want to pursue this Allied army? There's points to be gotten from it, but I will lose points in doing so. On the extreme left French flank, yeah, we're trying to deal with the cav charge. Mainly, we've gotten out of the way. This thing's here trying to protect these guns from being spiked, but there's going to have to be a fight there, I think. He could march forward in disorder, you know, but I don't know. Even if I do that, he gets a chance at a countercharge there. For whatever that's worth. But I guess the most exciting thing is, look at these skirmishers. They're surrounding the Huguenot. They're going to be able to attrition it more rapidly, and the ammo depletion means this guy's never going to get any more ammo. This guy will eventually get a shot and never get any more ammo. He could shock combat, though, to get his way out, and they're going to have to try to withdraw, but there's going to be some casualties as they do so. But I'm also surrounding the routing units here. These are also just skirmishers. Over here, trying to cut off the King's German Legion units, just trying to make things as ugly as I can without taking too much damage myself. Move on and see what's going on up here. Hey, before I do the Allied shock, I'm going to make some tea. I ran out. But what do we got? Well, the French are continuing to put pressure on the Allies in this pursuit variant. You know, it's mainly skirmishers I'm hitting at this point, but that's okay. Might even find some shock opportunities from them. Skirmishers trying to shock doesn't work terribly well, simply because, well, it's not that bad, honestly, if they find small units. But in general, I'm just looking at it as, look, you don't want to attack at 50%, particularly. I'm not sure. How terrible is it? It can be pretty decent. But I could take a loss where I'm unlikely to take a loss, or where I'm unlikely to inflict a loss. Yeah, there's a 1 in 6 of inflicting, a 2 in 6 of taking. So that feels kind of bad. But I might be able to take pressure off by routing, you know, or retreating some units that are in my way. Let's take a look from the other side, because I think it's easier for me to visualize what's going on with the lines. Just being able to see how much of it's held by skirmishers. But we're hitting here against some real stuff. Obviously, we're skirmishing there against real stuff. We already touched on that. Trying to get units in command. I've got things, pretty much I've got my command and control set up for the next move, assuming I don't route through a commander and take them with me to rally me. And then over here, the cav, I swapped out, put a cav in place that's in good condition that the British cav is going to have to charge. Now, we got a couple of brigades coming in, not this, here and here. First Corps brigade is going to try to take up a defensive position. I'm thinking about trying to take the hard points, but it's actually better to be in the sunken road and use this the same way woods would be used, which is it disrupts the enemy to move through them. If they want to do long-range fire or something like that, fine. But I think anchoring my defenses here, maybe going up onto the hill just to get me some height advantage. The hill itself isn't that big a difference, but then I can have double rank and use this as well. The Prussian army is going to have to stay together until muffling shows up. Then I can command two different units of it. So if I can create kind of a defensive barrier here, I can prevent the Prussians from doing much damage. And if they don't get close, wait, by the time I get here, I could actually deactivate. But I don't think there's much advantage to that right now. What I really want to do is start deactivating my beaten up units. I haven't found any French commands that are destroyed. I might have one, but yeah, there might be some cav that is. But anyway, I didn't find any just serendipitously, so whatever. Not really worrying about it. I got several turns to find such units as I go, but I don't have a lot of hope at doing so. You know, if a unit's not held together, it's really hard to figure out how you're gonna demobilize it. Which means the French army is only going to last on the board for a couple more turns before they too have to withdraw. Which may mean it's silly for me to try to defend against the Prussians. The armies are just, you know, it's too worn out to wanna face a fresh army. But at least the pursuit will get me some points. I took out a cannon. The Brits, I don't know what they should do. I mean, I need real gun crews to be able to use the cannons properly. So it's like I'd have to abandon a gun to go save a gun, and that seems kind of goofy. I don't think skirmishers can move the cannons. I know that they're able to fire, but they fire as a disorganized unit, which sucks. So anyway, the skirmishers are busy doing their own thing as it stands. Once I activate, oh, I did activate this. Yeah, so these guys will probably peel off a skirmisher each just to help the withdrawal. You know, yes, skirmishers aren't as good as they were when I had a fresh army, but they're still better than real units. Well, I was too hungry to come right back up, so I made myself some eggs and hash. It's starting to turn light now, which is pretty late in the morning actually nowadays. But I made myself some food, and then I ended up playing a bunch of Raid and then this other gotcha game that I have. And wasted a lot of time. Anyway, I came up, decided to do the shock attacks, and we got those out of the way. Let's take a look at what happened. Over here, the English charged towards this gun to spike it. French countercharge, basically both were stopped. The French got flung back though. They lost the attack. But I think the British charge is stopped, so they can't, even though they won it, they don't get to advance because they were countercharged. So I think it stops it. And then over here, the Brits were successful, but again, you know, they beat off the enemy, and that's about it. And that's going to put us on another turn. Where do we start on that turn? We start with the French command, and then Allied movement and all. Not going to be able to do that right now. I thought I was going to be able to pump into more stuff, but I'm just too tired. Oh, that a lie. I can do the French command and rally. I can get that much done, because not that much happens during a command phase. I'm not going to be activating more troops. Technically, I can't deactivate troops. Although, again, if I find a command that... See, I'm looking at the wrong time, though. The command phase is not when I'm looking to see, hey, can I deactivate this unit? Which is the weird thing. Like, the time when I'm able to do that is during the movement phase, which is very far away. You know, it's a half, you know, it's a full half turn away from the command phase. And I'm just not aware of, you know, I'm not trying to figure out who's in command or anything during the command phase. Which, again, I may just end up cheating and doing what I need to do when I'm capable of doing it, as opposed to when the game system says I should. One thing of any importance that happens during the command phase, because I'm not going to activate anything else. By the way, I'm sending Ney over to command these forces. I'll let Napoleon stay back with the guard in case he wants to commit them for anything. The one thing I'm capable of at this point, or allowed to do in the command phase, is the cav charges. Well, everybody's disordered here. There's one unit here. He doesn't really, he's facing the wrong way to hit this unit. And yeah, now we're all set. Cav up here, you know, the front ones facing him, they're now in good order. Some of the cav over here are in good order. And for the most part, the French are able to rally all their stuff. The one exception is, hey, I got some disordered stuff that's, you know, in minimum range firing zones, so they're taking enough fire that they don't recover. One annoying thing about this is like the walking through the woods disordering you. Yeah, I understand, and it's really kind of, again, a translation from the mini stuff. But you get these like little disordered markers that basically you put them on when you march through the woods, paying the extra movement points and everything. They're gone before anything happens. So I had a few of these disordered for walking through the woods, and now all those disorders disappear. And I'm doing a lot of mechanical tasks. It would matter though if I was approaching the enemy, right? I could have just said, screw it, I don't need to worry about it, but yeah. We're midday-ish on Sunday. It's pretty right now, but it's supposed to rain, and I guess I could have gone out in the morning. I did get up in time, but you know me. So anyway, we're gonna try to do the Allied movement actions, see how much further I can withdraw. Bring some Prussians on, and should be going shopping in a couple of days, I hope. Operations of trying to withdraw the army are kind of weird. So I've got, like, these guys. There's more of their unit here. This one commander. He's got more of it here. I can't really do anything about that one. But I can't withdraw that brigade until I get that there, until I get the commander to withdraw him, or a commander. And I don't know, you know, I haven't found the other option, but, our options. But I might as well throw those units forward to help provide some sort of defense. In terms of these guys, I'm breaking some down into skirmishers. But again, skirmishers, their morale is already decreased by 1. And I guess I'm going to try to withdraw with the non-skirmishers. Try to pull these skirmishers back, although they're in a really good location. So, you know, maybe it's better to just leave them up there as a break wall. I don't know. Certainly I can use these woods to some effect towards getting away, but to get out of here I got to turn. That's a facing formation change. I'd get fire for that. Then I get fire for leaving the hex. You know, I'm giving them 2 shots instead of 1 opposed shot, but I just don't see. These are sort of the forward units. It might depend. I think this is routed though. Yeah, that's routed, so I'll try to find his command. He may not have a command anymore. I don't think he does, so I think I can withdraw that and I'll take that as a brigade off. Like I said, I'm going to do that during movement. If I find commanders who don't have a brigade anymore, I'm just going to start removing them and reducing the costs. Okay, so we've started the withdrawal, and to a large extent, we're kind of succeeding. In pulling units away, I gave up whatever the skirmisher line was back here. It actually wasn't that good. The soft cover is all in the French's favor, so getting out of there was definitely worthwhile. You can see throwing some cav in the way in a couple of places to help protect the defense or the withdrawal. Cav is very, very good at this in the game, as it should be. Much more so than skirmishers probably should be, but skirmishers provide a little road bump. But the cav, what it can do is, if the enemy advances into their minimum range zone, they've got a chance of charging. Now, that chance goes down as the morale starts going down, but right now it's still pretty decent. And then some artillery, and especially the horse artillery, is particularly effective because it can withdraw. And position itself to fire each location. Over here, you know, again, some skirmishers protecting the line as much as we can. I removed a bunch of Allied units. These are the commanders I've pulled off so far, and that's reduced my burden down to 21 units, but that's still going to be 42 points when we come to the end of the hour, which is a nice, decent hunk of points, to be honest. I've got the Brunswickers leaving completely. Over here, these Dutch are running as fast as they can, but I broke down a unit completely into skirmishers to provide some sort of defensive line there. Where I'm in trouble, obviously I'm in trouble here. Those guys are just going to get slaughtered, right? Eventually, this stack will get a hit against something. It'll be ammo depleted as well. They're never going to recover their ammo. And honestly, they should just surrender under such circumstances rather than wait to be picked off, but whatever. But much uglier, these King's German Legion here. They were outside of command. I had to move the commander. The commander was busy trying to rally them. I had to move the commander up so he can command them, so that'll be a turn later. And through some artillery support there. These Dutch pulling back. Yes, they're to some extent facing the right direction, but we're just trying to consolidate, bringing the artillery back. The Cavs having a hard time getting out of the way again because this guy charged. He was no longer in command, so I had to move his commander and Cav into place. You don't know how effective any kind of French attack on this flank is going to be because the Allies were doing so well. Although here, this is going to be kind of ugly for those KGL units. And that's going to put me to the shock phase. I took a peek at a couple of shocks opportunities. Obviously, I have no Cav shock available. I took a peek at a couple of places where I might have wanted to shock, like against a skirmisher or something. I mean, it sort of would work, right? Because the skirmishers have less morale now. So let's take a look at this and consider whether we want to make it. So I'm attacking I'm a 5-point in line, attacking 2 strength points. So I'd be at 200%. Chances are the skirmisher wouldn't hit me, but it does have a 1/3 chance. I'd be at 200%. I've got a 3 morale. They've got a 4 morale, but I think they're in soft cover, which would add another essentially. It just doesn't strike me as worth doing. The skirmishers are unlikely to hit me. I'm almost impossible for me to hit them, but I think I'm better off just, you know, trading shots with them rather than charging in, especially since I do not want my own morale to go down. But yeah, largely the fact that the Brits are retreating, I got my retreat fire on them, but now I don't get shots on them. Now in some cases I got 2 shots on units, formed units that had to turn around and everything, and then ended up disordered. So like if they had been disordered to begin with, they could have withdrawn with just 1 shot on them. But being formed is a disadvantage because they don't have the all-around facing, giving up everything basically that I can. I don't have my leader here yet. He's walking up there. I don't know where he is. This may be him. Maitland here. I could remove him. Oh wait, all I have is skirmishers. Yeah, I can remove him. And then I can deploy those skirmishers as well. Put me on the reciprocal fire phases. There's not a lot, but there's enough fire that's going to happen that I want to take a break. Most of it infantry. Most of it right down here, although I do have a few shots here and there elsewhere, but not many. And yeah, maybe we'll do the Allied command and rally after that. Anyway, by laxening the demobilization or whatever, deactivation, I'm somewhat making up for the fact that I didn't deactivate units earlier, especially for the Allies. I don't know if there are any French commands that are completely out of the way. I have some extra, I have such chaos here that it's really problematic. And in other areas, I'm sure that there's like an entire brigade gone in terms of infantry, but I haven't been able to figure out what it is. And in some cases, like I'm having trouble finding the commanders for units as well. I know I had that issue somewhere where I couldn't find a commander. Eventually I found him. Oddly, I had this 322. The commander for that was up here somewhere doing something. Instead of moving his Landwehr forward, he had to run back to get them. So that's one that I've had on the books that hasn't done shit, you know, like the Brunswickers. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But yeah. And as units route, I've been incrementing the points, so we're up to like 44 in terms of how much we're in the hole already. Those are points that just, you know, essentially are bonus at the end of the game points, and that's it. All right, I completely forgot the Prussians. Okay, let's move them forward. Yeah, let's move the guys who are actually able to fight forward. But, you know, my focus is on getting the Anglo-Allied army out of here in as good a shape as I can. I don't really know that the Prussians are able to do much, but by putting some pressure on, they might be able to break the French army. That would be cool, although they really don't have many points on the French. Okay, I had to push the Prussians. The Cav could have advanced to about here. That would have been, I think, outside the 8-hex range. So I could have done the road movement and all that. But in order to keep everybody within range of Blucher, who's sitting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm actually one short, so I'm going to have to push back one more hex with everyone. Might have to move something else over here back too. But I basically had to push my units back in order to keep the entire Prussian army in command. Muffling, well, he's in trouble now because he's within 8 hexes of French units, so he slows down his movement. Well, it's Sunday evening. I don't know what time. A time when it should be light. Like 7, somewhere around there, 7 to 8 p.m. I have to go to sleep at some point because I'm in a position where raid time expenditure shouldn't be done right now. It should be done in a while. But I figured I'd slip up here and I guess do the fire combat, because I decided there was not going to be any shock. There's not going to be a hell of a lot of fire. Looks like the French get the first artillery fire. I see a gun here. You know, I'm sure that there's a shot over there. So I've got a couple. And I know the Allies are also putting some firepower down. This one's not going to be able to shoot. Its arc is wrong. But they're going to put some firepower down to cover their withdrawal. I picked the first shot over here, but oh wow, that's a shitty Cav piece. Oops. Right, well, the very limited artillery fire. Brits lost 1. French only fired the 1 gun here. At that Cav unit, they decided not to fire the other one. It would be long range at skirmishers. You know, why bother? They could have hit a routed unit. Actually, they would have had to shoot the routed unit, I think. I don't know. It might not be in their vision. But, yeah, I just couldn't see firing artillery, especially at a routed unit, because the routed unit wouldn't recover. It's already accounted for in the losses there. The Allies, on the other hand, shot 2 guns, and each one got a hit. Whoop, whoop, whoop. The French now have first fire for the infantry side of things. I got to make a decision. Do I want to start over here? Or I guess over there? Here I get beat immediately if I take all my fire. So if I fire the skirmisher and then this line, the Allies are already ahead of me. Is that the case over here, in which case I just lose in either circumstance? Actually, it doesn't look like I have an arc on that unit. So I would be starting over here. I think I'm going to do that because, you know, if I'm going to get beat either way, at least this time I'll get a few shots off first. Basically, a huge gap in fire. First of all, we cleared out quite a few of those skirmishers. They're easy to rout now, and that's problematic. Also, when they're stacked, that makes them all the easier to get out of the way. Having a couple of them stacked in one hex was terrible. I got that over there as well. There's a whole area where the Allied withdrawals have put them out of range, which means the French next shot is somewhere in this cluster, and this is just truly a clusterfuck. I don't have any idea where I should start, what I should do. All I do know is it's going to clutter up a lot of shots before I get there. Now, the Allies are going in the opposite direction, so no biggie. That big gap, I really wasn't counting on that. But I don't think I would have passed the French line. And I'm going to, I don't know. It doesn't make much difference. It really doesn't. And where the Anglo-Allied army had units, especially real units, regular stuff, not skirmishers, they're just melting. Units were already kind of beaten up. You remember, they don't have a lot of staying power in general once they take a hit or two. King German were like a 4 morale or effectiveness or whatever. It goes down to a 3 with 1 hit. They were taking their second hit here, or retreats and whatnot. There's only 1 standing still out of the line that had been there. Yeah, their points are going up commensurately. If you can remember, there was like a 70-point difference at one point a couple turns ago before the Allies broke. Now the French are at 96. Not great, but the Allies are at 60. That means there's like a 150-point difference at this point. That's how big the swing has been. And you can see we also cleared this hex next to the Huguenot, which means it's nasty. Basically, there was nowhere to retreat. They took a shot, they routed, and they took a couple of shots. And yeah, and now we're hitting an Allied command phase, which means morale is going to be -2 at this point. So, you know, the French are just going to be able to rack up a lot of score here. The problem, of course, is, do you want these French units to be operating? Now, I'm not going to allow currently operating units to demobilize or whatever for the French. I'm going to allow units that don't exist to demobilize, just as I have for the Anglo-Allied. But a mobilized unit is going to still have to pay, because it was doing something, right? The question about, hey, you know, am I like 4 or 5 points too much expended because maybe 1 unit, 1 brigade dissolved early into skirmishers or something like that. Yeah, that may be the case. That's about the extent for the French. The Allies had a heavier extent, but again, I don't think it affected their point total that much in terms of breaking. Again, it might be 10 points at the end of the game, one way or the other, but that 10 points wouldn't have changed what turn the army broke. If it was, you know, there were 2 or 3 units that I should have been able to dissolve, but I was using their leaders, so it's not, you know, 100%. Hey, it should have been able to go away. Plus, I do make the argument that, look, you know, if their skirmishers were fighting, and these units all had had some of the skirmishers that were involved in it, is it really fair? I don't know. I really don't know. Like, part of me says, if a unit's destroyed or whatever, or broken down into skirmishers that are fighting, you shouldn't be able to demobilize it at all, which was kind of the stance I took early on. But now I'm like, well, yeah, but the fighting's done over there, right? More or less. Not up to playing anymore right now. I think I have to either eat or sleep, and I think I'm going to choose sleep. Well, a couple hours of napping, listening to videos, whatever. Later, and I'm back up here. I've got sort of an interesting conundrum or something, which is whether or not to use my cav charges when I don't need to. Here's my take on it. First of all, if I wear out right now I'm at -2 on morale. That is a factor. I'm not going to have it's going to be dangerous very soon. But every point that I lose, you know, if it were an even situation, my points are just worth a point. The French points are worth a point too, but they're also possible towards demoralizing the French army and skewing towards, you know, that extra 25 points for the terrain, whatever, towards the Prussians winning the battlefield at the end. So it almost feels like I should. On the other hand, from a tactical point of view, obviously, I shouldn't engage when I don't have a reason to, particularly. Like the idea of, let me kill some of my horses in exchange for some of yours, that's not a very fair, you know, that's not a reasonable choice. So I guess in terms of game terms though, it'll come down to, hey, how good am I? Now unfortunately I have a 5 morale on top instead of the 6 morale that I could. I'm probably going to be charged down against if I go in here. So I'm looking at 8 strength points. That's not going to do anything. To 6 strength points. So he'd be lower. He's got lower morale. So I think I am going to do that charge, or at least declare the charge zone. It has some additional effects, which is going to force some morale checks on other units, making it harder for them to pursue anyway. And given that this guy is going to try to, well, presumably, try to cut through that gun when he next gets a move to spike it, yeah, I mean, covering his way might make sense. I don't know. Highlights, and I'm not used to this, the idea of like the morale decreasing as you go. Not the morale so far, or per se, but the effectiveness value. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, your morale state decreases, whatever, but your general effectiveness usually stays the same in games. But like these guys are going to be only a 3 morale, so like the stacking of my units is actually important. I'm not used to that. I'm used to the front unit, yeah, its morale counts for morale checks and whatnot, but it doesn't really decrease until it hits a certain level and then drops a significant amount all at once. Take a look at something like, you know, CWB for this, where a unit is either, you know, demoralized or it's not, basically, or wrecked or it's not is the term they use there. But that's not how this works. This works incrementally, which kind of makes sense, but it also kind of is part of why units have no lasting power, because they can't take even minimal damage without it impacting their morale. I almost feel like maybe the morale effects should be halved. Like, you take half as much damage, so that even a weak unit has some chance of maintaining good order standing against a successful attack or an attempt or something. I don't know. It just feels a little too extreme the way it is. I do agree with the incremental, but it just feels like it degrades so damn fast. Anyway, that's the only charge I'm declaring. The rest of it's just rally, and then I probably go down and have something to eat. Well, I kind of lied and decided to stick around for a while. But anyway, the charge zone caused morale checks, and almost everything, this unit did not, this unit did not, that was in that zone failed and ran away. It is a very powerful tool under the cases that you're attacking, that you're threatening units that are already shaky. The French forces over here had been badly battered, and that charge zone just threw them into chaos. Now, maybe one here would have done the same. It would have caught one more unit, that's it. So, not that big an effect, I guess. Finished up the turn. The Allied charge here bounced off the French Cav. The French Cav countercharged. They both are disordered, and the Allies are running away. They're here. I'm not facing the right way. Okay. In terms of the pressure, well, first of all, the brigade here is in place and deployed. Remember, I'm 8 hexes or more away, so I was able to double move. Over here, I'm starting to send the 6th Corps unit over, but I'm also sending the rest of the 6th Corps units I had committed over to join that defense, because, along with all their artillery, because I determined that, you know, the pursuit's less important than defending and preventing the Prussians from beating up, you know, a small force with their large army. It's not a huge army, but it's an army. A couple of corps coming over there. I need to put, you know, at least a division or so up there to face them. And so, excuse me, putting a little bit of pressure here on the Cav. The Cav is actually doing a pretty good job of preventing me from doing anything. Actually, I have not moved these French Cav. I ought to move them into place. Not quite sure where. I don't want to get into a charge zone. I really don't want the Brits to have a charge available to them. Okay. Just to kind of create a sort of an encirclement there. The infantry puts a threat on, but if I charge into the infantry, I'm exposing my rear to the Cav, and that might not work very well. Some artillery up here that didn't really get into place, but for the most part, just trying to, you know, contain things over here as best as I can. It's not really an advantageous situation for me. In fact, I'm ignoring these guys. They're not doing any harm. He's got to smuggle a leader in there to do anything. So like he's got to smuggle one back there. And let's see, for the rest of the line, yeah, putting up some stuff near these woods here, leaving a gap here. This is where there's a lot of Cav. Doesn't look like a really wise area to charge a lot of troops, which is part of why the 6th went away. They would have been the ones filling that gap. As it is, I've got actually, I think that's a whole division. I've got, right, yeah. And I'm sending basically 2 more divisions up there. I've got basically a division spread out across here through some skirmishers in front just to protect me. I just don't want to take the morale hits more than anything else. Here I'm shying away from these guns, but sent a couple of skirmishers in to try to pick off the crew. Advanced as far as I could. I've got units that are kind of having command and control issues. I may move some of my commanders around, like I got this guy, he's not really doing anything. I have not found a single French brigade that's not commanded. Or a single French brigade that's wiped out yet. I found some that are close. They have like 1 unit with a strength point, but I can't turn it into a skirmisher because they're not that high quality. So, you know, they're definitely candidates for units to get out of the line, but it's hard to get something out of the line when you're not sure whether there are other units of that formation there. That's going to be the end of this turn. I think I'll play at least another turn before I load up. I don't know. But yeah, the pursuit is going, whatever, you know. There's this whole balance of like, how much do I want to pursue and rack up points versus how much do I have to defend against the Prussians, you know. And some of that comes down to what the victory conditions are for the scenario. These old rule books say often lose the back page or the center page. Do we have anything special? Victory is determined at the end of the game. However, the final Allied and French are increased. Yeah. So, what was it? Victory is determined 13-4-7. Yeah, where you look at a morale difference. So the only thing that matters is the morale difference. And yes, it would be bad if the French get demoralized. I'm hoping that they don't, but I think they're going to. I don't see a way out of it. I really don't. And, you know, if you think about what demoralization means in something like Civil War, it's just neither army is really really capable of operating anymore. It feels more extreme here, though. Demoralization feels like, hey, you got to leave the battlefield now. So it feels like a defeat situation on top of whatever impact you're taking on it. And yeah, I mean, you know, a fresh Prussian army hitting me at this point doesn't seem that unreasonable that I might have to leave the battlefield. The question, of course, is it worth the attack? Is it worth paying those extra points? Certainly, it's worth the threat of it to try to prevent the pursuit from being all out. Something in me feels like if you win the battle against the Anglo-Allied army, the French army would get a boost in morale, at least as important as whatever they get from the two terrain objectives that I've already scored, which is why, by the way, why I'm so far ahead when it comes down to it. That's, you know, again, it's an extra, 35 points or whatever that is swung from one side to the other over the course of the battle. So that's a big part of that 150-point difference between the two armies. And then now, you know, the Allies are kind of sitting ducks with all their routed units counted against them and everything. There aren't a lot of French routes, though, so. All right. And it's time for me to actually make food now. Right, in the French command phase, we're launching charges over here. Oh, they basically just hit this. I got 2 different cav units hitting it. Just trying to cause it to have a morale failure. I'm actually under strength, so it's kind of a bad idea, but I'll at least be on the same elevation, and his morale is down a couple of points right now. Let me see. It's down 1 here, down 2 there. I have not yet hit the Allied command phase, so it's only down 2, but that puts him at like a 4, which is not very good at all. Of course, this thing is also at a 4. And these guys are at 5. So I'll hit with the better guys first, which might cause some casualties. In any event, though, I'm going to force a morale check on him. I might actually not do this one. Let's keep 1 unit in reserve. Because the morale check makes a big difference to the whole thing. And I think hitting with a couple weaker forces isn't really all that valuable. That's just risking more of my stuff. That's going to put us on the Allied movement. I have to swap pipes, but I think I'll just keep going because, hey, it took a little while to do the rallying, but not very long. The French don't have a hell of a lot. There's not a lot of fighting going on. So, like, you know, oops, did I forget to, yeah, I forgot to rally him. Sometimes that happens. We're in the little oopsies area. This guy over here, this is actually a skirmisher that was back here that was routed, and I sent a leader to go deal with that. They could have been doing something else. I don't know what. You seem to recall there's some second corps cav out there, but I think it's already committed, so I think all of second corps is committed already. So it's not really that big a deal. Dive in though. It is Monday, mid-afternoon, I guess. Let's see. It's about 3 o'clock real time. Another rainy day. Tomorrow's supposed to be rainy too. Wednesday's the first day that's not supposed to rain, and that's kind of shitty. First of all, I'm real low on food. But secondly, I was kind of hoping to be able to go out and get some stuff that I would cook for Thanksgiving, although it would be really tricky to get it there. Like, I don't know if anybody would want to eat it the way I would transport it or if it would work out well. So I'm like, I don't know. But I don't want to show up empty-handed. The problem, of course, is I can't just run out and get something, you know. It's a big deal for me to get whatever I get, and I'd like to bring something, and I don't know what. And whatever I bring, you know, I've got to carry. It's as long a walk as my shopping, and I won't have a little cart or anything, so, like, you know, it's not that big a deal. I'll have, like, a shopping bag or something. I have some of those that I can bring. But also, what I was planning on was, like, you know, kind of something that I bake in the oven, and it would just be a side dish type thing, something with yams, it's a really yummy dish, but I don't really have a container to bring it in or anything like that. So I got this feeling of, like, you know, transporting it in Ziploc bags to be spilled out into, you know, and I don't know if the host is going to have, you know, extra facilities to warm stuff up easily or whatever. I just don't know. Anyway, yeah, life gets very, very complicated. Like, I think ordinary people know how to do these things and also have, you know, things like cars and stuff they can operate with them, or they live close enough in the neighborhood that they could just walk them over without it being a big deal. But for me, it's about an hour, 15 minutes walk to where this is. Anyway, beyond that, Raid has a big event going on that I'm kind of participating in, but they also have like, it's the first time I've been tempted to spend money on it in a long time. Like, I never spent much. I spent under $50 on the game so far, but it was like a $40 hit for He-Man. I'm not really a big fan of He-Man, but it's a good champion for the game, it looks like, and I'm just like a really good champion that would presumably help my account a lot. So I'm like really debating it. I just want to spring for a Christmas present for myself of some digital crap for a game. And when I say it, it sounds so stupid, but it's tempting, you know, it's tempting. If you compare it to other experience type things, right? Like, and I don't know what it is because it's not something I own, right? I own it in the game is all it would be. If you compare it to other things that are kind of ephemeral, well, I'm going to get a lot more pleasure out of it than I would out of like a night out, in a sense. Like that night out, which costs about the same, is just like a blank in my memories. Of course, if I'm trying to leave this plane, my memories kind of don't matter anymore. But in that case, my money doesn't matter either, right? Anyway, whatever this is something that I will be able to enjoy within the game over, you know, and I put so much damn time into the game, I kind of feel like I might as well spend something, not for their sake, but for the sake of like just, you know, having some sort of significant improvement, which this might well be, as opposed to some of the other things where it's like, gamble on an improvement. Myself again, having moved some cav, I think what's happens is I see the artillery piece, and for some reason it looks different, so I think it's the leader or something. Cav that I should not have been able to move. I'm marking it as activated on there. I found a unit that got destroyed. Well, it's kind of hard. Like, I kind of want to describe some things. So, like, I haven't done the center yet. I worked over here, and these guys are kind of working on their withdrawal. This actually wasn't a cav. I thought it was. The cav unit stepping outside of the charge zone, which is here. This cav is not active yet, but Uxbridge is over there to activate it. Trying to get these Dutch infantry out, trying to get these Landwehr out. And then I stopped because things start getting complex over here, and I wanted to work on this flank to understand better the nature of what the withdrawal is going to be here. I think working right to left from there on is going to work fine. I think I could have left that flank alone, to be honest. But and I stepped on a gun over here and starting to pull my cav out. The Dutch running away kind of full speed. I'm finding myself needing to pull my skirmishers back to stay within range of units. Now those units might march away. The skirmishers don't just disappear, but they got to keep following, I guess. This Dutch cav is active. So this is the weird thing. This one got activated and this didn't, but I think Prince of Orange was able to activate those. But whatever, it's too minor to worry about. I figure putting the command in place makes the sense. I had some King's German Legion destroyed trying to withdraw here, and lost 2 guns trying to withdraw from skirmisher fire. There should be an ammo depletion over there that I forgot to put down. But yeah, I'm just trying to fall back everywhere. We'll get more to that. And then, of course, I have the Prussians, which I keep forgetting about. Here, I guess, is the full picture of the route or whatever. It really feels like one because skirmishers trying to get away, getting shot up, and then having their neighbors route and all kind of stuff like that. I kind of forget when I put a route marker on something. I gotta mark the points for it. I think I'm more or less caught up. But yeah. Thought I could withdraw from here and get a line of skirmishers coming out of it, but I had a stack of 3 that just blew up, and they took a hit, and 2 of them routed. Another router over here, I think that's another skirmisher, I'm not sure. Nope, it's some landwear, but yeah, I mean, just shit's falling apart everywhere. Trying to use the cav to cover the gaps where I can, using the skirmishers, you know, as sort of a screen for me to fall back behind. They work really well for that. That's great. That's how they should be. I got a lot of routed units. I'm just turning and running with this shit. What's Wellington up to? I think he's got to command these because I can't find... Uxbridge is busy doing something else. He's commanding those cav over there. The problem with these guys, I feel like Brunswick should have been able to give them the orders to get off the battlefield. Yeah, they're assembled into the cav and whatnot, but he's not able to activate a unit. He would have been able to individually command units of that. So as it stands, only Wellington can do that. Right now. Well, Uxbridge could as well, but I think Brunswick should have been able to, honestly. But anyway, Wellington would have been needed to commandeer these guys and get them moving. But yeah, we're just going to be falling back behind the skirmishers and the cav, see what we can do. Let's start deploying some Prussians. Restrictions of the Prussian... command as they come on the map, where they're going to have to basically demobilize if they fall out of Blucher's command. The fact that I can't use road movement and I'll have to be in the woods deployed, all in disorder, paying lots of movement points and everything, all that, it's causing this weird kind of traffic jam here. Now that's going to start spreading out. They're going to come out of the woods, or they're going to be traveling through the woods in disorder. It's going to be horrible, but it's what it is. Anyway, the French gave them room instead of deploying right up at the forest's edge, which would have changed how the Prussians decide to deploy. Might have been a wiser move to be standing there waiting for them to come out of that woods. But they would have been able to get close enough that they could move up to here and position themselves and everything. So I think this is fine. This is somewhat better terrain in and of itself. And it gives me more time for 6th Corps to come up. So there's that. Are there any French melees? Well, the French aren't in contact with anything. So the only possible melee would have been this cav charge, and that is not happening. Which means, why is that still disordered? Doesn't really matter. It's so far back, it's going to get a chance to rally as it moves on the next French command phase. So what that means that we'll be hitting the fire phase. There's very limited fire left. I don't feel really up to doing it right now. But there are very few places like here where a couple hexes apart we can shoot. Obviously that. But yeah, there's just going to be a couple of little shots here and there. There may be some Allied artillery fire. They've unlimbered us. They're using their horse artillery to help cover the retreat as well. The regular foot artillery, not so good at that. It's too slow. It's some of the stuff that I'm letting just run back. This guy could have gotten off the map. Doesn't really make much difference. I held him 1 hex off so that I could, like, maybe next turn, you know, stack everything nicely or whatever. But he's just an artillery piece. He doesn't even really count for demobilization under normal means. So yeah, next turn we may see the French start to deactivate some of their weaker units, pursuing with, you know, a brigade with like 1 piece or something. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So we shall see what we shall see. But I got to get the point cost down, otherwise. And honestly, the Prussian army isn't in that great a shape either. I mean, neither side is really ready to fight to turn 50. So I get kind of the feeling that the battle will wear down due to exhaustion no matter what. And remember, you might say, some of these troops aren't very exhausted. The Prussians have been marching all day and night. They're tired. That's why it's perfectly fine that they can't put in a full day's fighting. But honestly, you can't put in a full day's fighting in this game. And that may be a good thing. A lot of the times what I have as a problem with these sort of big tactical games, big tactical battle games, is that, yeah, you know, the fighting is just continuous at a high pitch, at a high rate. And that didn't tend to be the point. That didn't tend to be what actually happened. What actually tended to happen would be there'd be maybe some intensive fighting in some areas of the battlefield, but for the most part, a lot of units would be standing around, not doing anything. Order systems like CWB, etc., NBS, handle that relatively well. They reduce the amount of activity that you can put at any one time. This game's trying to do that with the morale. I don't think it's as good an effect. See, the idea that fresh units are getting affected by the number of units that I have committed in terms of overall morale. Yeah, it makes sense if you're just thinking morale, but that morale's carrying a lot of water here. It's carrying the fatigue element to the game. It's carrying the orders element to some extent. It's doing a lot of the work that I would rather have split up into individual things so that I can look at them each as a whole. Now, you know, in terms of, hey, how is the battlefield developing? You know, it's working okay. All the units are getting committed and everything, but it does feel like not all the units are fighting equally. There's heavier fighting in some areas, and those units aren't particularly penalized except for the casualties that they may have taken, which just doesn't feel like it's covering the idea of the fatigue that, for example, the Prussian army holds. It's an abstraction. It's one that I just kind of would rather not have there, but it does make it more simple than tracking multiple things. You know, obviously, I played something recently in Summer Storm that went overboard on trying to get everything specific and covered, you know, in every single little aspect so that you had all the details, except for something that I really appreciate, which is kind of the concept of fire combat being different from not just being a CRT odds table result, which that game covered and handled in that way. And I just don't like that. It doesn't feel right to me in a certain way, even though I can guarantee to you that it probably gave, well, I can guarantee that it probably, yeah. Way to hedge an absolute, right? Now, my feeling is that that game is more accurate if you can play it correctly in a lot of ways than most of these fire and movement type games are. But I like the fire and movement. That's a detail that I don't want to give up, even if it adds some inaccuracy. Okay, so I'm back up here, got about a half hour before raid starts in earnest. The French have one gun set up in a really great place. Unfortunately, it's limbered, so yeah, they're not going to get a shot in. Here, you know, I don't want to shoot at skirmishers. It's a 1 in 6 chance or whatever. It's just not worth it. At this time in the game, I think. I can direct those artillery into defensive positions and create like a massed artillery battery, because they don't follow the same restrictions as regular units do. They're basically on their own in command, so you have a lot of flexibility as to what to do with your artillery. Again, probably appropriate. For the Allies, I thought, oh, I'm going to get some shots in. Well, here, nice medium range shot here. Don't want to fire behind the cover and whatnot. But I'm below the slope. I can't. Even though this guy's on an upslope, I'm behind. I think I would have been allowed to see him under the game rules, because I think the restriction there is only if both are on a downslope, if you're on the same elevation. But in this case, I look at, yeah, there's sort of a crest there. Now, could I see over it? Yeah, you know, maybe, but I feel like I'm a little too liberal on my lines of sight. This one not having any good hits. My other guns are gone, so screw them, man. Oh wait, I got one over here. Maybe that one. Maybe that one. Yeah, that's gonna take a shot. We'll do it live, because why not? All right, so that's a 6-2. It's not going to be an enfilade. I'm not in his firing arc, but I think it's still not an enfilade. Okay, so medium range, 6-2 at a line. Yeah, that's not a bad shot at all. Except I miss. Terrible. All right, and then for infantry, again, I don't think there's going to be much. Allies get first shot. I don't know where they're going to go. Oh, I forgot all about this. The only exchange of fire that was really applicable outside of this is here. They each plinked. Nobody got anything. But the French have all those shots. Hit. They're all 1 in 6ers. That's going to put me to Allied command and rally, and then we'll probably stop there. You know, I've got a new unit to bring in. There's not much in rally. I don't know. Do I feel up to doing the French? Yeah, we might finish the turn up. We'll see. So I commanded my 2 Cav units. This one over here under Uxbridge. This one over here with, oddly enough, a British commander for the Brunswick troops. Okay. These are all my deactivated units. That leaves me with 2 commanders. I don't know where they came from, what they're up to. One is the 1-1, which would be a divisional commander, I guess. There's the the 1-1-1 got removed somewhere. I don't think there is. No, there's got to be more than that. I don't know where he'd be. I honestly don't. He's not a brigade, though. The other is this 3-2-2. That's this. I've got the 322 here under Adam. I don't know what happens with this Haskett dude. Again, you know, I pulled one guy out. I don't recall any special rules about that or anything. There are some cases where there are units that have very similar numbering. So, like, could there be like a Hanoverian unit? So this looks British. This might be Hanoverian. Or it might be British. It's hard to tell. You know, here's the distinction. Those are the two colors. I think this is another British leader. I don't know if he's just another leader for that unit, but he's kind of irrelevant at this point in the game since I'm just pumping stuff off the board. So I think I've got all my commanders on the board who aren't already deactivated because they lost their units. I got to make a decision on charges and then do the rallying, and that's it there. Fair amount of potential charge zones. Might launch this one. Tie these guys down a little bit. Oh yeah. I'll launch one there. But I'm going to launch one here. But elsewhere, like this guy, he's got terrain he's got to deal with. I don't really want to charge. That wouldn't be too bad. Yeah, let's launch a couple of charges up here. Over here, though, it's particularly important because I can kind of screw with those infantry and the skirmishers and throw them back a little bit, give me a little bit more room. For the most part, I can get out pretty easily, so it's like, do I really want to fight? Do I really want to lower my, lower my victory points? Well, any victory points I lose due to casualties aren't that terrible if I'm trading them. Whereas the French really don't want to lose more of their morale points because they have to stick around to fight the Prussians. So if I can cost the French something in this disengagement for pressing me at all, they're getting a lot of points off pressing me. They really are. But just throwing some cav in, that might relieve some pressure, and the cost for it is actually not really significant. Now, I've got to worry because I'm in my command phase. I'm at -3 now on my morales, which means I may not make the charges. I gotta roll for these. I'm used to these 6-point units. This is one of the things. This guy can't charge anymore. Not that he's particularly good at it. I don't know what he is, some kind of dragoons or something. No, they're hussies. The numbers just don't work. When the morale starts going down, I'm gonna be fighting on like the -2 table or something. That's just no fun. That's no good for me. My cav is becoming less and less effective. I've got to get the hell out of Dodge, is what it comes down to. Unfortunately, that's going to put it on the French movement, though. Oi, oi. Okay, well, we'll do it. This of my command structure showed that most of my cav, or most of my third cav, is gone. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 brigades of cav that I disappeared. I'm going to throw Kellerman and this guy over here. They're not really doing anything, so they're fine. Let's put this guy back here. That's an infantry unit he's commanding there. So I took those points off. Those could have come off, long ago. But yeah, that pretty much the entire third cav is destroyed. As I start to work my way through. Okay, to a large extent, the French are actually pulling back. I've decided it's not worth the pursuit. The cost, wherever I can demobilize units next turn, that's going to save me points. Not next turn, but, in the future. And it's just, the balance isn't worth it for me, even though I can maybe do some damage to the Anglo-Allied army. I'm really worried about the point spread here. We're looking at 93 for the French, 125 still for the Prussians. Being able to hold the battlefield long enough. I don't think I can, right? But 6th Corps moving up here, more of it moving here. I got a lost unit of 6th Corps somewhere, I think here or here. Some of the 1st Corps units pulling back, they're going to move here. The Cav running away. Got units like this that I'm pretty sure I can demobilize, so that's cool. Kind of beaten up unit. These guys not so much, but I don't have skirmishers here. I'm gonna just let them go. If I had skirmishers, I would deploy them in the woods and give him some grief. But you know, I've won the battle over here. It's time to concentrate against the Prussians and see how long I can hold out. Putting a little bit of pressure here with some skirmishers, just hoping that they run away more than anything else. And likewise here. And again, it's in the Anglo-Allied best interest to run away too. They're not going to be able to commit to a sustained firefight anywhere. Their morales are dropping and everything. If they want to stick around, that's fine. I'll get more points off them. If they run away, that's fine too. I get to demobilize a lot of units and reduce my costs. Got some artillery running off the board. So that's going to be the end of the turn. And this one's going to go up. Because we beat one army. Now we got a fresh one to fight. And in a lot of ways, the terrain is just not really that big to our advantage. The axis of the battlefield is really nice for either side facing each other across these ridges. But here, the only thing I have really going for me is the Prussians have to deploy out of the woods, which isn't great for them. But the stream here is cutting, any kind of attempt to defend on that side away. I can hold this hill, maybe cut down through here. I maybe, in fact, shouldn't be so far forward, given how well I've done. These guys are going to be a pain in the fucking ass. I'm hoping the Allies are able to withdraw them. They're just causing me annoyances more than anything else. All right, let's send it up then.